This little girl, who was only 8 years old, was attracted to luxury goods. When the store manager saw this, he immediately called the cleaning lady to wipe off the handprints on the window. Zayon found out and quickly pulled her daughter to apologize. At this time, a man got off the luxury car in the distance. Zayon panicked when she saw the other person, and couldn't help but steal a few more glances. But as soon as she turned around, she realized that her daughter had run away. When Zayon tried to go into the mall to look for her, the manager stopped her because she looked poor. The little girl was attracted to the luxury goods and couldn't help reaching out to touch them, which triggered the alarm. At this point, Zayon had already rushed into the mall and asked the manager to help her look for her daughter. But her daughter was being held back by the security guard. Unaware of the situation, Zayon apologized humbly, and the security guard slowly let go of her daughter. But the security guard said he would take the little girl to the police station. Zayon was scared and quickly told the truth. "I came here today to see your chairman." Zayon wanted to ask her husband for help, but when she saw him, she couldn't bring herself to say a word. She flinched and said she had the wrong person. She even refused to let her daughter go and see her. That night, Zayon was folding her daughter's clothes when she suddenly collapsed. She knew in her heart how serious her illness was. She looked at her young daughter with reluctance. Zayon crawled to the drawer with great difficulty and used her last ounce of strength to grab the tissue box. The next day, Sarah woke up and saw her mother lying on the ground. But no matter how hard she cried, her mother didn't respond. All her mother left her was a bunch of cold numbers. Jae-hwan was preparing to handle the funeral arrangements after learning that his younger sister had passed away. But his wife said, "I'm going to work at the supermarket." Jae-hwan flew into a rage. "How dare you be selfish and only think about your own affairs?" Sarah only had her uncle in the world as a relative. But when her uncle took her home, he met with resistance from her aunt. Jinky says, "Why did you bring home a burden? Our family doesn't have much money as it is, and now it's even harder." Jae-hwan begs, "I'll work hard to earn more money to support the whole family. I'll do whatever you say from now on." An angry Jinky goes to the kitchen to cook and complains about Sora's mother being irresponsible. Sora sees her washing vegetables and offers to help. Even a young child knows that life in this family is not easy. At dinner, her son asks Jinky to help him add some rice. Jinky deliberately scolds her son for eating so much and not thinking about how much money it has cost recently to feed him. Sara knows that she is talking about herself and carefully puts down the spoon. Jae-hwan asks her if the food is not to her liking. Sora looks at Jinky and then says, "I've already eaten enough." Such a sensible child is really heartbreaking. Sara is assigned to share a room with her cousin. She keeps saying nice things to her cousin so that she can accept herself, but her cousin still dislikes her very much. Sara saw how her cousin disliked her and quietly found a corner to squat down. That night, Sara felt uncomfortable in the strange environment as soon as she arrived and went to the toilet several times in a row. She tried her best to make as little noise as possible, but was still scolded by her cousin. However, Sara still wanted to go to the toilet, but was afraid of disturbing her cousin's sleep and could only hold it in. When she got up, she realized she had actually wet the bed. In order not to be kicked out of the house, she could only continue to pretend to be asleep. After finishing eating, Jinky pretended to come over and wake Sora up, but she also saw the wet sheets. Sara begged Jinky not to kick her out. Jinky reluctantly agreed, but only on the condition that Sora wash the quilt clean. At this time, Sara missed her mother even more, but she had to bear everything alone. That day, two debt collectors broke into the house. The other party smashed everything they saw. Jinky was injured when she tried to stop them, but the other party mistook Sora for Jinky's daughter and took her away directly. Jinky watched helplessly as Sora was taken away and collapsed to the ground. In the car, Sara asked to go to the bathroom as an excuse to make the other party stop by the roadside. Sara took advantage of the other party's inattention and immediately escaped. After walking through a jungle, she finally reached the road. Sara anxiously patted on the car window to call for help. The woman looked at the poor Sora and quickly let her get in the car. Mrs. Wu is a kind and wealthy woman, but she is unable to bear children. When she saw the intelligent Sora, she immediately fell in love with her. When they arrived at the service area, she specially found a pair of clean shoes and lovingly put them on Sora. Sara looked at the kind aunt in front of her and thoughtfully, "This is the only person who has cared for her since her mother passed away." She couldn't help but think of the days when she was with her mother. As soon as they got off the bus, Sora's stomach started to hurt again. Mrs. Wu hurriedly took Sora to find a place to rest. She was puzzled as to why Sora was being chased by the bad guys. Sora looked at the kind auntie and told her what had happened. When Mrs. Wu asked Sora where her home was, Sora, being too young, could not remember at all. Mrs. Wu decided to take Sora back to her own home first. Perhaps this was fate. The two met each other in a dramatic encounter and trusted each other. As soon as Sora arrived home, Her stomach ached again. Mrs. Wu took advantage of the time when Sora went to the bathroom to prepare a delicious meal for her, but Sora had never used a fork before. Mrs. Wu saw this and carefully taught her. Sora immediately praised the noodles as being very delicious, but then her stomach suddenly started to hurt. Mrs. Wu quickly took Sora to the hospital. After Sora woke up, she hurriedly apologized to Mrs. Wu. Considering the needs of others at such a young age made Mrs. Wu feel even more for Sora. Just then, Jae-hwan also arrived at the hospital. Seeing the weak Sora, he hurriedly expressed his concern. At this time, he saw the woman who saved Sora on the side and bowed repeatedly to thank her. But Ginky complained again. "You are really a burden. Now I have to pay for your treatment." Mrs. Wu saw Sora's relatives come to say goodbye and prepare to leave. The sensible Sora thanked her and said, "I will wash your shoes clean and return them to you." Mrs. Wu, who had left the ward, heard Jinky complaining, kindly paid the bill in advance to prevent Sora from being scolded again. When she returned home, Mrs. Wu couldn't stop thinking about this clever and considerate girl, and Sora also missed this gentle auntie. In the hospital ward, all the other children were accompanied by their parents, but Sora was all alone. Even when she went to the toilet, she had to go alone with the four in her arm. After a period of treatment, Sora returned to her uncle's house again. Jae-hwan, in order to apologize, gave Sora a pair of new shoes. Just then, Jinky walked out of the room. Jae-hwan was so scared that he hurriedly hid the shoes. Jinky questioned him about what he was hiding. With no choice, Jae-hwan took out the shoes. Jinky thought that her husband had bought new shoes for his daughter. When she heard that they were for Sora, she looked displeased. Jinky then called her daughter, Hayami, over. But Hayami said that if they were for Sora, why was she wearing them? Jinky said that if they didn't fit, she could take them back and get a new pair. Hayami knew that her father hadn't bought the shoes for her and became angry. Running back to her room, Sora took the shoes to her room to avoid her cousin getting angry. Hayami picked up the shoes and threw them at Sora, shouting angrily, "You don't have any parents, so why are you pretending to be pitiful and fighting with me for the room?" Sora was about to explain when Hayami threw the other shoe at her. Facing her aggressive cousin, Sora said self-deprecatingly, "I don't have any parents and nowhere to go. So I really want you to like me. If you kick me out of here, I really won't have anywhere to go." After saying this, she carefully put the shoes back. Sora immediately bought medicine when she saw that Jinky had fallen ill and also made rice porridge. However, Jinky did not appreciate the cheap white porridge. Although she had been scolding and abusing Sora, Sora had to become more understanding in order not to be driven away. She opened the refrigerator and saw the radish and remembered the medicine that her mother often made when she had a cold. In order to make Ginky recover quickly, Sora tried it, but she could not find any honey. Just then, a loud noise came from outside. Jinky immediately got up and asked Sora what was going on. Sora said, "I wanted to make you a tonic, but I accidentally broke the honey jar." Jinky looked at the expensive honey that had been broken and accused Sora of being a burden. At that moment, Mrs. Wu came to visit and couldn't help but notice the truth. She heard Jinky scolding Sora from the door. Mrs. Wu walked into the room and saw the frail Sora picking up glass shards with bare feet. She was extremely heartbroken. Jinky saw Mrs. Wu and thought she had come to demand treatment fees. She hurriedly said that the family had no money, but Mrs. Wu ignored her and took Sora and left directly. Later, she carefully treated Sora's wounds. After learning the whole story, Mrs. Wu bought a jar of honey and brought it home for Sora. Back home, Mrs. Wu had mixed feelings. When she met the well-behaved Sora, she had the idea of adopting her. At this time, Mrs. Wu received a call from her husband. She told her husband that she had met a child she really wanted to adopt. That day, Junwoo asked his mother for money in a sneaky way. Jinky said that the family was already so poor and asked for money. Junwoo muttered a few words and left directly. At this time, Sora found Jinky and asked, "Can I go to school? I will clean up the house carefully to make up for it." The mean-spirited Jinky mocked her. "You're lucky I'm feeding you. Now you dare to mention this condition again?" Sora was too scared to speak. Suddenly, Junwoo calls Sora on the phone. It turns out that he was going to steal money to go online, but he was afraid of being scolded, so he lied to Sora that his mother already knew. The simple Sora followed Junwoo's instructions and found the location where the money was hidden. As soon as her hand touched the money, she heard Jinky's voice behind her. Sora said with grievances, "I didn't steal it. Junwoo told me to take it." Jinky pulled Sora out with a face full of disbelief. Now she finally had a reason to get rid of Sora. Sora explained with a sad face, but Jinky would not believe her words. She slapped her hard. This was witnessed by Mrs. Wu, who happened to arrive. Mrs. Wu quickly went up to comfort the poor Sora and asked with a heartache why she had to hit the child. Jinky said that Sora deserved to be beaten for stealing money from the family. Mrs. Wu did not want to deal with the unreasonable woman in front of her and directly said that she wanted to adopt Sora. The scheming Jinky, however, wanted to take this opportunity to make a fortune. Sora couldn't bear to see Mrs. Wu leave. She thought back to the good times they had spent together. She didn't want to miss this opportunity. As she watched the other person leave despondently, Sora cried out and chased after her. Mrs. Wu couldn't help but get out of the car and run to Sora's side. Sora cried and explained that she hadn't stolen anything. "Auntie, please take me with you. I'll be a good girl and do all the housework." Mrs. Wu hugged the sensible Sora in her arms. Feeling a pang of pain in her heart, she made up her mind that she would adopt her at any cost. That day, Jinky came to Mrs. Wu's door and saw the luxurious villa, and she immediately had a bad idea. As soon as Jinky met her, she said that she was in a difficult situation and owed a lot of money. Mrs. Wu didn't hesitate and gave her a large sum of money directly. She didn't want Sora to live in such an environment again. As soon as Jinky arrived home, she told her husband about it. Although Jaehwan couldn't bear to see Sora get adopted by someone else, there was nothing he could do. That day, Mrs. Wu was preparing to come and pick Sora up. Hayami saw that the orphan Sora was actually adopted by a chaebol and was jealous, so she ran out directly. Sora hurriedly asked her what was wrong. Unexpectedly, Hayami spoke harshly to her. The kind-hearted Sora wanted to invite her to play together. However, Hayami mocked. "Orphans like you were treated very well when you were first adopted, but you will be abandoned soon." Sora couldn't understand why her cousin was like this. At that moment, Mrs. Wu drove by in her car. Hayami looked back enviously, and Sora also went to her aunt's side as she wished. Mrs. Wu specially remodeled the room. Sora looked at the luxurious room and felt like she was in a fairy tale. Mrs. Wu's husband, who was far away abroad, learned that she had a daughter and couldn't wait to come back and take a look. That day, Jinky brought her daughter to visit Sora. When they saw such a luxurious room, they were stunned. Hayami saw the orphan she despised actually living in such a big room, and ran out with jealousy in her face. She also blamed her mother for being incompetent. "I wish I were an orphan too, so I could be adopted by a rich man." Mrs. Wu and Sora played hide-and-seek in the luxurious villa. Sora, who had always been self-conscious, became lively. She thought that their happy life would continue like this, but fate played a big joke on Sora. The next day, Mrs. Wu took Sora to meet her uncle. In the car, the two of them were still thinking about where to go for a fun trip by plane. Just then, a car rushed out from the intersection ahead. Mrs. Wu was hit by an oncoming truck in order to avoid it. Time passed by minute by minute. Sora slowly woke up from her coma. Looking at her aunt who was not responding, she panicked instantly and hurriedly called for help. Mrs. Wu was then sent to the hospital by the ambulance. When Mrs. Wu's husband learned the news, he also hurriedly arrived. Seeing that the skinny Sora was also injured, he asked his assistant to take her to the hospital for treatment as soon as possible. However, Sora was very concerned about her aunt's injuries. She was afraid that if she left, she would never see her beloved aunt again. Fortunately, the operation went very well, although Mrs. Wu was rescued. At this time, President Min could not be distracted from taking care of Sora and could only ask Jaehwan to take her home first. Jinky was immediately unhappy and had a big fight with her husband when they got home. It was hard to get rid of that burden, and now she had to take her back. The more Jinky thought about it, the angrier she became. She grabbed Sora directly and was about to send her back. She didn't want this orphan to come back to the house again. Jaehwan really couldn't stand his wife's behavior and directly slapped his wife. Jinky saw her husband slap her for the sake of the orphan and picked up Sora's things and threw them out. Hayami saw her mother get beaten up because of the orphan and disliked Sora even more. "You are full of bad luck. Anyone who meets you will become unlucky." Sora felt very uncomfortable when she heard these words. If she hadn't met her aunt wouldn't have fallen into a coma. At this moment, Sora felt that she had brought misfortune upon herself. However, Jinky had no intention of letting Sora go. While her husband was out, she took Sora to the hospital and found President Min to demand an explanation. President Min said that his wife was going abroad for treatment and was currently unable to adopt. Jinky angrily said, "For rich people, adopting a child is like buying something?" President Min once again said that he was currently unable to adopt Sora. Jinky rudely said, "I won't take Sora home either. My family's situation doesn't allow me to raise another child. If you don't adopt Sora, you'll have to take her to the orphanage yourself." On the other side, Sora was happy to see her long-missed mother, Mrs. Wu. But Mrs. Wu had become a vegetable. Sora was saddened, but took the lucky charm her mother gave her, hoping it would bring Mrs. Wu good luck. Jinky also got a sum of money from President Min. agreeing to take Sora home first. President Min will transfer a sum of money to Jinky's account every month, and she, who is greedy for money, no longer dislikes Sora. Sora asks President Min with a broken heart how long her aunt will be away for treatment. President Min comforts Sora, saying, "Your aunt is very sick. It will take a long time for her to recover completely." Sora sits helplessly in the corner and cries out in despair. A month later, Jinky goes to the bank happily to withdraw money, but the staff say there has been no transfer. Her face instantly turns pale and she grows tired of Sora. Sora asked Jinky for some pocket money. She wanted to buy a small gift for her best friend. "I'll pay you back by doing the dishes and cleaning up after me." Jinky scolded her when she heard this. "I'm already doing you a favor by feeding you. How dare you ask for money?" Sora was scared and quickly apologized, saying that she didn't want it anymore. Jaehwan secretly gave her some money before she left for school. Sora took the gift and went to find her best friend. But Hayami saw this scene. Sora looked at her classmate's mother warmly entertaining everyone and couldn't help but think of her aunt. When she returned home, Jinky was still in a very annoyed mood. Hayami immediately said that Sora had stolen money to buy a gift when she heard it. Jinky immediately scolded Sora when she heard it. Sora hurriedly apologized and hoped to be forgiven. Jinky picked up a stick and was about to hit it, but her son stopped her. Sora felt aggrieved and sat alone crying by the roadside. Every time she missed Mrs. Wu, she would return to the mansion. There are beautiful memories between the two of them. Time passed like this for 8 years. During those 8 years, Sora missed Mrs. Wu all the time. She posted her thoughts about her on the wall. Unconsciously, the entire wall was covered. After growing up, Sora still worked hard, designing bags based on her own ideas and selling them on the street. During those 8 years, because of Sora, President Min would send money to Jinky every month, but the scheming Jinky never told Sora, and secretly saved it for her daughter's future expenses. The mother and daughter even went to a 5-star hotel for dinner. Just as the two of them were happily celebrating, a phone call made them panic. It turned out that Mrs. Wu, who had been in a coma for 8 years, had woken up. At this time, the person she most wanted to see was actually Sora. Jinky didn't want to lose the monthly support money, and was also afraid that the embezzled money would be discovered. The mother and daughter were distraught over this matter. At this time, Sora still didn't know that Mrs. Wu had woken up. She received a letter from abroad and was overjoyed, thinking it was from her aunt. When she opened the express delivery, she was full of disappointment. It was full of letters she had written before. After a long time, no one signed for it and it was returned. Sora couldn't help but shed tears. Hayami happened to come back and saw the letter. She thought Sora knew that Mrs. Wu had awakened, but Sora said she didn't know what went wrong. The letters sent to her aunt were all returned by kind people. Hayami learned that Sora still didn't know and was relieved. It turned out that when she was young, she had changed Mrs. Wu's contact information for Sora, which was why Sora had been unable to contact Mrs. Wu for so many years. The malicious mother and daughter could not sleep for fear of their secret being revealed. Mrs. Wu was very determined to adopt Sora and immediately sent a lawyer to the house to complete the adoption procedures. Jinky immediately refused, saying that she would wait until Sora finished high school before leaving. The lawyer said that Sora should be sent there quickly as it would help Mrs. Wu recover. After the accident, Mrs. Wu has lost some of her memory. She may not even remember Sora's face. At this time, Jinky had an evil thought in her heart. She immediately asked her daughter to pretend to be Sora and go to the Chabel's house. This way, she can also enter high society in the future. Hayami asked Sora with a scheming heart, "It's been 8 years. You should have forgotten that auntie, right?" Sora quickly said, "How could I forget? I'm more worried about auntie's health now. I wonder if she's awake now." Hayami pretended to know nothing and said, "How could a vegetable wake up?" Then she asked how Sora got along with Mrs. Wu. The innocent Sora didn't guard against it and told all her secrets. The next day, Jinky was reluctant to say goodbye to her daughter, but the ruthless Hayami, thinking about being able to live a rich life, left without looking back. Hayami looked at the letters she stole from Sora. The letters were full of memories between Sora and Mrs. Wu. This made Hayami feel that the impersonation would never be discovered. However, the key to the mansion was mixed in with the letters and taken, preventing Sora from entering the house. Sora had been looking forward to her aunt's arrival. 8 years later, she was determined to become a top handbag designer. In order to understand the styles of handbags abroad, she used her camera at the international airport to record the new styles. At this time, Sora was attracted by the man's bag in front of her. Under her pestering, the man reluctantly lent her the bag to look at. However, after taking the photo, the man realized that he had lost his wallet. At this time, Sora was gloating over the photo she had just taken and did not look at the road. almost causing an accident. She looked into the car and saw a man sitting inside who looked exactly like Mrs. Wu. Sora was shocked. Just as she was about to go over and confirm, the car disappeared. At this time, the man who lost his bag grabbed Sora and took her directly to the police. Sora anxiously tried to clarify herself, but she had no evidence. At this time, the police brought back 2 thieves. Among the stolen goods, they found the man's lost belongings. Sora felt very angry. It was this unreasonable person who made her miss the opportunity to confirm her aunt's identity. She fiercely kicked the other person. Back at the store, Sora was distracted by the design sketches. She couldn't help thinking about the woman who looked like her aunt. If only she were my aunt. On the other side, Mrs. Wu hurried back from abroad because her grandfather suddenly fell ill and fainted, and the doctor in charge of taking care of her grandfather was Mrs. Wu's doctor from the car accident. The doctor asked Mrs. Wu, "Isn't this the little girl who waited outside the operating room so desperately?" Hayami, however, had no idea about any of this and pretended to be shy to cover it up. When Mrs. Wu returned to her old home, she found post-it notes all over the walls. Hayami panicked, thinking that she was about to be exposed. Mrs. Wu hugged her and cried after reading the notes. Hayami immediately went to find Jinky and wanted to sever their mother-daughter relationship. "I'm going to focus on being the daughter of a Chable foster parent from now on. It's best if we don't see each other anymore." Jinky looked at her in despair. "Your mother, I'm still alive." But Hayami said coldly, "Let's just say you're dead." Jinky never expected her daughter, who was living the life of a rich girl, to be so heartless. She slapped Hayami hard, but this did not make Hayami realize her mistake. Hayami successfully became a leader in the company thanks to her wealthy adoptive father. Together with other managers, she founded a new competition. This competition relaxed all conditions in order to select the best designers. This competition happened to be discovered by Sora. She decided to seize this opportunity to work hard towards the goal she set when she was young. A few days later, she brought her design to the company to enter the competition, but she didn't expect to see Hayami, who had disappeared a long time ago. Here, Hayami was so scared that she fled in fear of being exposed. Sora was still wondering if she had seen wrong. If Hayami came back, her family would definitely know. Sora asked Jinky doubtfully, "I saw someone today who looked exactly like my cousin." Jinky hurriedly asked her where she saw her. Sora said that I called her, but she ignored me and ran away. Jinky was afraid that the truth would be revealed, so she immediately said that you must have seen her wrong. However, Sora did not know that this would bring disaster to her. Jinky saw that she had just left, so she immediately told Hayami to be careful. Hayami said that I have my own way to make Sora leave. That day, the company conducted the second test. Hayami was worried that Sora would also come, so she secretly ran to the exam room. After she found Sora, she immediately made up her mind that she could not let Sora pass the exam, because she is used to living the life of a rich girl. She absolutely cannot return to that slum. Sora received a call during dinner that she had passed the exam. Jaehwan and Junwoo were very happy for her, but Ginky was very unhappy when she heard now her daughter is finished. Hayami was looking at the exam results when she suddenly received a call from her mother. The two of them began to plot a plan against Sora again. Hayami asked her mother to sabotage Sora's final test. The examiner really likes the bag designed by Sora and won the top prize in this exam. Now there is only one final round of exams left. The bag needs to be made out of leather, but the 2 types of leather used in Sora's bag are very rare in the market. Fortunately, with Jaehwan's efforts, they were finally found. Sora is also confident in dealing with the final assessment. After several days of sleepless creation, she finally made the sample for the interview. Jinky, however, blames her husband for helping Sora so hard. "What about our daughter if she succeeds in the interview?" Jaehwan angrily said, "I told you not to do this. This is so unfair to Sora." Jinky asked her husband to persuade Sora not to go to work so that her daughter could have a better life. Jaehwan said, "I've already made one mistake. I won't let Sora down again." Jinky was so anxious that she couldn't sleep, so she secretly took Sora's exam entry. Sora participated in the final assessment with full confidence, but she discovered that her work had disappeared. Junwoo received a phone call and hurriedly grabbed Sora's work and was about to leave, but Ginky kept stopping him from leaving. As time passed by, Sora didn't want to miss this assessment, so she rushed into the supermarket to pick up a few tools she could use and ran into the bathroom at the company to start creating. The woman next to her was dumbfounded by what she was doing. Although Sora managed to come up with a few samples, she was still missing the most important material. Just as she rushed out of the bathroom, she bumped into a man. In a daze, Sora discovered a material that she urgently needed. She happily widened her eyes and immediately climbed over to get her purse. Sehun snatched it away and said, "You just broke my computer." Sora desperately pleaded, "Borrow the purse in your hand for a while." Sehun suddenly remembered that the woman in front of him was the one he met by chance at the airport and also caused him to lose his wallet. Sora snatched the purse away and ran into the bathroom. She instructed Sehun to help clean the leather that was soaking in the water. Seeing that the exam was about to start, Sora hurriedly thanked Sehun and then gave him a business card, saying that she would definitely compensate him after the exam. Sehun was puzzled by what she had said, but when he looked down at the bag, he noticed that there was a big hole in it. He chased after her angrily, but ran into his female subordinate who had come to the toilet. When the person in charge called Sora's name, she did not respond. Just as she was about to give up, Sora ran to the exam room at the last second. When she saw the leather disappear at the finale, she was very worried about the final result. At this time, Sora was surprised to find that one of the examiners looked exactly like her cousin. It turned out that Hayami had stolen the identity and was afraid of being discovered, so she immediately changed her name to something else. However, Sora, who was unaware of this, thought that she was just imagining things. Just as she was surprised, the examiner asked her with a puzzled look about the work and the actual presentation. Sora apologized to the examiner. Suddenly, an accident occurred, causing the sample to be lost, but Hayami deliberately caused trouble in order to get rid of her. After the assessment, several supervisors gathered together and lamented Sora's results. One examiner felt that Sora had ranked first in previous exams and could not unilaterally deny her design ability. However, Hayami tried her best to stop her. She felt that as a designer, she needed to be able to respond to emergencies. In fact, what she was afraid of was Sora entering the company and exposing her identity. The examiners were forced to agree by Hayami's status. This made the worried Hayami feel at ease. Sora felt very guilty when she saw Junwoo, who had delivered the work for herself, get into an accident. However, Jinky kept blaming Sora for not protecting the work and causing her son to get such a serious injury. Hearing that she had no chance of passing this assessment, she accused her of being incompetent and just daydreaming. The next day, when the results were announced, Sora found that her name was not there. Disappointed, she got on the bus and wandered around the neighborhood of the Chabels' house. Just thinking about the good memories she had with her aunt helped her to calm down. That day, Sora went to her friend's high-end handbag store to find out how much it would cost to replace Sehun's bag. When her friend pulled out the same limited edition bag and told her the price, she was shocked. Sora would need to work decades to pay for it. She could only pray that Sehun would quickly forget. Meanwhile, Sehun was worried that he didn't have a reason to go find Sora, so he went to the address on her business card. Sehun pretended to be angry and said, "You promised to accompany me with my wallet. Why didn't you keep your promise?" Sora thought he was a stingy person and told him that she would definitely compensate for it. However, with her current income, she simply cannot afford that wallet. Sehun suddenly noticed the photo on the wall and asked in surprise, "Do you know the girl in the photo?" Sora glanced at Sehun and wondered if the person in the photo was you. After getting a reply, Sehun was overjoyed. It turned out that they had met 8 years ago. Sehun was charmed by this girl at the time, but never imagined that fate was so clever. However, he hid his feelings. Sehun deliberately told Sora that she would be forgiven if she made the same bag again, so that he could see her more. Sora was surprised and asked if she didn't have to pay back the money. Sehun pretended to be generous and said, "Who am I to deny someone's good nature?" Sora immediately agreed to make the bag as soon as she heard that she didn't have to pay. Sehun teased, "But the prerequisite is that you have to satisfy me. Don't you dream of becoming the world's top designer? Now you're not confident enough, are you?" Sora agreed on the spot. Overcome with passion, Sehun felt a sense of satisfaction in his heart as he saw Sora fall into his own trap. When he got home, he couldn't help but laugh uncontrollably when he saw Sora's photo. Perhaps it was under the influence of the magic of love. Sehun solved the mathematical problem that had been troubling him for a long time. This made him even more infatuated with Sora. Hayami moved to another place to avoid meeting Sora's wealthy parents. Because of her actions, Sora had difficulty meeting Mrs. Wu. On the other side, Sora finally finished the rough draft of the painting after several days of non-stop design and creation. Now she just needed to choose the final material. Sora deliberately spent a lot of money to get a high-quality cowhide. Then she sewed it according to the drawing. Sora completed the entire process alone. Just as she was about to finish the product, She received a text message from Sehun urging her to hurry. Sehun learned that she would be able to finish it today and hurriedly asked her to meet him that night. Sara felt that Sehun was a person who did not work hard when she saw that the meeting place was a bar. When she arrived at the agreed place, she was blocked by the security guard. The security guard looked down at the bag in her hand and said with contempt, "So you're a runner." Sora hurriedly called Sehun, but there was no answer. Sehun, who was on the dance floor, was still wondering why Sora hadn't arrived yet. As soon as he arrived at the door, he saw Sora arguing with the security guard. Sora angrily left, but Sehun called out to her. Sora was angry because he kept not answering his phone, so she turned around and left. Sehun grabbed Sora and rushed into the bar. It was Sora's first time in an upscale bar, and she felt very uneasy. She handed Sehun her bag in a panic. Sehun liked the bag that Sora designed very much, but he pretended to dislike it. Otherwise, he won't have an excuse to see Sora again. Seeing this, Sora quickly praised the bag for its exquisite style. Sehun, however, simply threw the bag on the table and said, "Redoing this doesn't fit my status." Sora questioned, "Then what style do you like?" Sehun arrogantly said, "As a designer, do you still need to ask what your customers like? I just don't like it. You must redo it." Unexpectedly, Sara was so angry that she started to bleed from her nose. Then she walked alone on the street in a state of anger. She felt very embarrassed and complained that there was nowhere to take the bus nearby. At that moment, a luxury car suddenly arrived. Sehun anxiously shouted at Sora to get in the car. Sora angrily asked, "Why are you looking for me now?" Sehun casually found an excuse and pushed Sora into the car. When he turned around, he saw that Sora had fallen asleep and could not wake her up no matter how he shouted. Sehun quickly straightened her head, but it fell back again. He had no choice but to grab a pillow and hold it around Sora's neck. Sora woke up and found that she was tied up. She yelled at Sehun. Sora left without waiting for Sehun to react. Sehun suddenly saw a colleague in front of him, and this person was Sora's cousin Hayami. Ever since she entered the wealthy family using Sora's identity, whenever she was unhappy, she would vent at her old place of residence. Hayami saw Sehun coming and hurriedly fled, saying that she was lost. The next day, Sora reported to work as arranged by Sehun. Hayami saw Sora arrive at the company and was afraid that her identity would be revealed. She immediately questioned her colleague why the company would just hire anyone. Minky asks suspiciously, "Why are you targeting this talented designer? I sensed that you didn't like Sora during the last selection." Hayami quickly explains that it was because she didn't follow the rules that time, and that this time I'm upset because no one informed me before making the decision. Minky is forced to refrain from losing her temper due to Hayami's position. At this moment, Hayami comes up with a vicious plot. On the other side, Sara was holding the information to deliver it to the leader when she was accidentally bumped by Minky. Minky was very interested in this girl who ranked first in the assessment but missed the cut. When Sora delivered the information to the office, she was told that her boss was looking for her. Hayami, however, did not hide her identity and directly revealed it. Sora felt incredible, but Hayami calmly said, "Don't you recognize me as your sister?" Sora said, "Since you recognize me, why did you pretend not to know me before?" Hayami immediately said that she had been adopted by a rich man. Sora immediately asked, "Your parents are both still alive. Why were you adopted?" Hayami started to make up lies. "I met my current parents while studying abroad. Thanks to them, I have the status I have today." Then she told Sora to leave the company. Sora was full of disbelief. She didn't know what she had done wrong, but Hayami didn't know that the memories of the adoptive mother were slowly returning. Mrs. Wu recalled the scene when the poor girl begged her for help. She hurried home and looked for the shoes she had personally worn for Sora. At this time, Hayami found her mother. Jinky scolded her for why she had to tell the truth. Hayami said with a scared heart, "I was afraid that she would spread the rumors and affect me, so I said that I was adopted." Jinky saw this and scolded her daughter for not being able to stay in the same company as Sora. "If it were revealed, we would all be finished. Why don't you just go abroad quickly?" Hayami looked at her with disdain. Sora is the one who is most good at pretending to be kind. Maybe this time she will pretend to be kind and leave the company. Jinky continued to coax Sora in order to preserve her daughter's status as a rich girl, in order not to affect Hayami's work. "I will let her pretend we don't exist." Jaehwan couldn't bear to continue deceiving the kind Sora and angrily ran out, but the vicious Jinky persuaded Sora to quit her job as soon as possible. "I won't see Hayami again so that she can live a happy life. Please, for her career development, quit your job quickly." Sora returned to her room and was very distressed. Why did she keep wanting to get rid of herself when she listened to Jinky so much? At this time, Jaehwan was outside, chafing at himself for acquiescing to Hayami's theft of Sora's identity. He walked along the road, blaming himself for being damned. For a moment, He was confused and listened to the nonsense of the two women. When he returned home, Jaehwan apologized to Sora. I actually let your cousin go to the Chabel's house instead of you. Jinky, who was lying in her room, was shocked. She rushed out and covered her husband's mouth. Seeing that her husband was about to speak again, Jinky quickly sent Sora away. Jinky immediately pushed her husband into the room and scolded him. Do you want to ruin your daughter's current life? The drunk Jaehwan muttered. I'm sorry, Sora. The next day, Sora still returned to work. Hayami was scared and went straight to Sora. Didn't I tell you not to come to work? Sora said helplessly. The shop owner ran away with the money, leaving me with a huge debt. If I don't go to work, I can't pay it back. Hayami immediately said, I'll pay for these expenses. You'd better quit. Sora was even more puzzled. I've only been at the company for 3 months. But why do you keep driving me away? Hayami pretended to be considerate and said, this kind of company is not for you. You're just a small part-time worker. You can do it at another company. The kind-hearted Sora still didn't realize that she was being targeted by Hayami. She explained helplessly that although I was only a part-time worker, I was very happy to be able to participate in the development of new brands in the company. Hayami saw that Sora was not sensible and mocked her, saying that your job is just a handyman. Sora said firmly that as long as I can do what I like, that's enough. Back in the office, Hayami thought back on what Sora had said, and a vicious plot sprouted in her heart. At this time, Mrs. Wu told the doctor that she remembered some fragments from the past. The doctor said that being able to recover some of her memory was a good start. President Min excitedly holds his wife's hand. Jinky is afraid that her husband will tell the truth and directly gives him a divorce application. Jaehwan feels deeply remorseful for deceiving Sora for so many years and is about to sign the divorce application. Jinky grabs her by the arm and angrily says, even if you tell everything, what can you do? Sora will definitely hate you when she finds out the truth. Now you hurry up and write me another pledge. If you get drunk and say something again, you will leave this house. Jaehwan is disappointed in his vicious wife. At this time, Hayami returns and directly takes out the money and demands to sever ties. This money is to repay you for raising me. The innocent Junwoo asks his sister what this means. Jinky is afraid that her son knows the truth and actually defends her daughter. Your sister came because she knew we were in financial difficulty. But Jaehwan directly threw the check on the ground. You are the one who abandoned your parents for money. Don't pretend to be sympathetic. The once vicious Jinky could only beg her daughter. You are our family's lifeline. Don't ever leave us. Hayami looked at her sad and tearful mother and stood up to leave. Jinky's tone became even more pleading. Stay for one last meal. Hayami didn't dare look at her and turned around to leave. Jinky chased after her and told her daughter, I will make Sora leave the company. She is obedient to my every word. Hayami coldly responded and turned to leave. She learned that her adoptive mother's memory was slowly returning, but her heart was in a panic. Back at the office, Hayami called her colleagues to dinner. In order to exclude Sora, she pretended to ask if the brand design had been organized. Sora quickly responded that she would be able to finish it before the end of the day. Hayami pretended to be difficult and said, I want to see the data after dinner. The kind-hearted Sora didn't know that she was being targeted. The hypocritical Hayami deliberately praised Sora. You work so hard. Sora worked alone overtime to rush the material. After the material was completed, she breathed a sigh of relief. What she didn't know was that Hayami was standing behind her, setting her up. The next day, Hayami deliberately blamed Sora's boss even though she knew that Sora had done the material. The simple Sora hurriedly said, I'll make another copy. Hayami then told Sora's boss, although she is only a part-time worker, you have to judge whether her abilities meet the company's requirements. Sora explained to her boss, I have prepared the material according to the requirements, but I don't know why there are still omissions. The boss sighed. Last time you missed a project for the company assessment. It's normal that there are omissions in the prepared materials this time. Sehun hasn't been seen for a few days, so Sora immediately calls him, but it shows that the phone is turned off. Coincidentally, he meets Sora, who is in a daze. In the corridor, on her way back, Sora meets Minky. Because he helped himself, he casually gave him the bag he had to compensate Sehun. Minky opened it when he got home and found it very exquisite. He also carried it with him at the dinner party. Sehun, seeing the bag his sweetheart made in someone else's hands, was instantly jealous. He immediately found Sora and made another bag before tomorrow morning. Sora was at a loss. She simply couldn't make it in such a short time. Sehun said imperiously, I must have it tomorrow morning. Sora started working all night. She wanted to be perfect in every stitch. Looking at the exquisite bag, Sora was afraid that it was not yet good enough for her picky boss. She left a message on a sticky note. The next day Sehun saw the exquisite leather bag and the sticky note, with Sora's sweet words on it. "I hope this will satisfy you." This satisfied Sehun's vanity. He then called Sora. Sora was busy drinking with Minky and saw Sehun's call, so she hung up directly. Sehun bought a new phone in order to contact Sora and drove directly to her place. However, he waited for several hours in front of her house and saw no one. Just as he was about to leave, he saw Sora flirting with a man. Sehun gunned the engine and roared past them. When he got home, he furiously solved math problems. Sora carried 2 boxes of mineral water and called out to Sehun. Sehun got into the elevator and slammed the door. Sora saw Sehun's name tag in the conference room and skipped past it, turning to carefully wipe Minky's name tag. At this time, the telecom company notified her to go to the store to activate her phone, and the person who helped her was Sehun. Sora was puzzled and asked Sehun, "Are you the one who helped me get a cell phone?" Sehun took out the cell phone he bought for Sora and handed it to her directly. "Your phone is so old and always turns off. This is a new one I got for you to use." Seeing that Sora was still hesitant, Sehun continued to persuade her. "It's just something free. You can activate it at the store and use it right away." Sora was afraid that Sehun was up to something, so she returned the phone. Sehun quickly came up with an excuse to let Sora take the phone. Sora took the phone and found his friend Naeon. Naeon saw that there were also exquisite accessories and said that Sehun had given it to other women and only gave it to Sora after they were rejected. Sora wondered why he would give me a phone. Naeon analyzed that maybe Sehun has feelings for you. Sora said self-deprecatingly that in fact he hates me. "The first time we met, he treated me like a thief. Hayami after living a wealthy life. She lives in fear every day." Sora suddenly came to the door. Her smile instantly disappeared. Sora asked in surprise, "How did you get out of Auntie's house?" Hayami was about to make up an excuse when suddenly Mrs. Wu's voice came through. Sora, who had been separated for 10 years, finally heard her aunt's voice. She shouted anxiously and rushed up. Hayami, afraid of exposing the truth, stopped Sora dead. Hayami, who was scared by the nightmare, pretended to be sick. She was afraid that Sora would come looking for her one day. Mrs. Wu thought she had fainted from overwork and was going to move closer to the office. Hayami woke up and was shocked to see her real mother. She asked, "Why are you here?" Jinky saw this and said, "You shouldn't be so surprised to see a ghost in broad daylight." Hayami anxiously asked, "Aren't you afraid of being exposed if you come here? Your adoptive mother contacted me and said you were sick. How could I, your real mother, not come and see you?" Hayami said in horror, "Your adoptive mother's memory is coming back." Jinky was afraid that her good life was coming to an end. Hayami quickly tells her adoptive mother to shut up when she hears footsteps outside the door. That day, Mrs. Wu was planting a potted plant when she suddenly remembered planting trees with Sora in the past. She immediately called Hayami to confirm. Hayami heard her adoptive mother say, "I think we planted trees in front of the villa before." She immediately asked Sora, "Do you remember a place with trees around the villa?" Sora was puzzled and asked, "Why do you ask?" Hayami pressed, "Which tree nearby left a deep impression on you?" This made Sora even more puzzled. "You don't know my Chable aunt. Why are you suddenly asking about the villa?" Hayami impatiently said, "Do you know or not?" The kind-hearted Sora immediately said, "There is a forest across the bridge from the villa. My aunt told me the names of many trees when we were walking." Hayami drove directly there, wanting to find the tree before her adoptive mother recovered her memory. On the other side, Mrs. Wu anxiously searched for the sketchpad at home. It turned out that the tree in her memory was not the real tree, but the one drawn on the sketchpad. Hayami suddenly saw a sign and thought she had found the right place. Just as she was happy, her adoptive mother's words came back to her. Hayami trembled as she answered the phone and heard her adoptive mother say joyfully, "I found the tree." When she returned home, her wealthy adoptive mother took out the picture and asked, "Do you remember this picture?" Hayami hesitated for a moment and immediately said, "Yes." Her adoptive mother said, "You remember. Why did we draw the tree?" "At that time, we were going to plant a tree, but it rained. We just drew it on the board." Hayami saw this and took the opportunity to say, "I think it may be difficult for you to remember by yourself, but that will be more helpful to you." Her foster mother said happily, "Things I did with you are slowly coming back to me." Hayami's heart fluttered. Her foster mother questioned, "Why are you looking so pale? Are you not feeling well?" Hayami hurriedly explained, "I remembered your memory is recovering. I am happy for you. You look so pale. Why don't you take a rest?" Hayami returned to her room and collapsed on the bed, feeling weak. That day, Hayami saw Sora's mother's photo but didn't recognize her. When she turned over the photo, she realized that it was Sora's mother. The Chabel's adoptive mother looked at her with a puzzled expression. Hayami immediately explained, "This is a photo of my mother." After her adoptive mother left, Hayami looked at the photo and became agitated. "I've been trying so hard to hide it, but now I have to think of more excuses to deceive them." Mrs. Wu walked up to her husband and told him her suspicions. President Min felt the same way. He also felt that Hayami was strange, especially when it came to childhood memories. He could feel her nervousness. Then the two of them found Hayami. "I hope you're prepared. Your mother and I want you to go to the hospital for a checkup." Hayami was panicking inside. Could it be that she was going to reveal her identity? At this point, President Min said, "Although you occasionally forget things from your childhood, you can't even recognize your own mother's photo. I think it's still necessary to go for a checkup." Hayami was relieved. It turned out that they were just suspicious that I had lost my memory due to illness. She pretended to be sad and let out a sigh. Hayami came to the company and greeted everyone cheerfully. But when she saw Sora, she looked at her with disdain. Sora, on the other hand, was relieved to see that she had recovered. Hayami and Minky went to the rooftop. It turned out that the two had studied abroad and had a relationship. Minky said, "You obviously love your parents so much. Why do you give people the impression that you are lonely? Is it because of the project that you are burdened?" Hayami said firmly, "I will not feel burdened because of work. Only work can keep me going." Minky was surprised. "Is someone trying to bring you down? Why do you have to struggle to get by?" He didn't know that the Hayami in front of him was just a malicious woman who had stolen Sora's identity. Hayami was in the meeting room critiquing the staff's designs. When she saw that Sound's design was very perfunctory, she criticized her. "As a designer, do you just design casually like this?" Sound hurriedly apologized to Hayami. Minky said that everyone should go back and think about the problems pointed out in the meeting. He immediately asked where Sora's design was. Sora felt incredulous after hearing this. Hayami was afraid that Sora's design talent would be discovered, so she used her power to cancel all of her designs. Unaware of what was going on, Minky saw the kind girl being bullied and confronted Hayami. But Hayami said firmly that Sora was just a part-time student and how could she compare to a famous designer in the company? "What's the matter with you having thoughts about a part-time student?" Minky angrily said. "What do you mean by thoughts? Why are you targeting a part-time student?" Hayami said that this matter would end here and left directly. Sound, who was scolded at the meeting, was hiding in the toilet crying. A colleague saw this and comforted her. "As long as you make a superb design, you can restore your image in front of everyone. How could I possibly make a better design?" Sound saw Sora and an evil thought occurred to her. At night, she sneaked into the office and took pictures of Sora's beautiful designs. The next day, Sound deliberately stood in the doorway of the meeting room. When she saw Sora about to enter, Sound, who was scheming, stopped her and asked her to help find leather. Sound returned to the meeting and used the stolen designs to get praise from her superiors. Sora looked at her colleagues discussing the designs and was envious. She said to the bag she had designed, "Soon I will make." Then her boss asked Sora to print out some information. While printing, Sora saw that Sound's design was exactly the same as hers. She found Sound and asked if she had stolen her design. Unexpectedly, Sound slapped her. Instead, she said that Sora had no shame. "I don't know what kind of tricks you used to get into this company, but you better watch out in the future." It so happened that this scene was seen by other colleagues. Sora felt very uncomfortable when she saw her design being stolen by a colleague. Sound's design won first prize. Another colleague felt sorry for Sora and went straight to Minky. "Although I don't know whose work it is, I think I should tell you. Keep it a secret for now." Minky went straight to her partner Hayami. And Hayami really wanted Sora to leave the company. She thought that Sound should not be suspected just on speculation. Minky said, "What if the design is Sora's?" Hayami thought for a moment. "Then it's all the more reason to keep it quiet." Minky angrily questioned what it would be like if the design was stolen. Unexpectedly, Hayami blamed Sora for not protecting her work. Minky angrily said that he would pursue this matter to the end. Hayami thought of an even more evil idea. The simple Sora was unable to do anything about her work being stolen by her colleagues because she was only a small employee. She found out that Sehun had given her the phone as a gift, which made her feel even sadder. Sora went to Sehun's office but didn't know how to bring up the subject. Sehun came back and asked if she had just arrived or was about to leave. Sora was shocked and hurriedly said, "I was just about to leave." Sora gathered her courage and said, "I'll pay you back for the phone in installments." Sehun said, "You're making me feel uneasy by giving me expensive things." Sehun was very surprised. "You haven't received a gift before?" This made Sora feel awkward. After thinking about it, she really hadn't. Sehun said, "Just consider the previous gift as a lump sum." Sora asked, "Why did you give me that gift?" Sehun said domineeringly, Just think of it as a gift from Santa Claus. Sora thought to herself. This rich kid is really strange. While selling her wares at the street stall, she wondered about what Sehun had said. Minky came over to prepare to ask about the theft of the work from the side. Sora was a little surprised to see Minky arrive. Minky said, I help you sell bags and understand the preferences of customers, which is very helpful to me. Sora was amused by his actions. Minky used the excuse that he wanted to take a look at her designs and discussed with her the choice of handbags. Seeing that the design sketches in the album were the same as Sound's, he immediately understood everything. After returning to the office, Minky called Sound into his office. I've always seen your design style as good. Sound was very happy to hear her boss praise her. But when Minky opened the album, her face turned pale. You have stolen other people's designs and deceived so many colleagues who trusted you. Sound couldn't hold back her tears when she saw that she couldn't hide the truth. I just wanted to meet the deadline. I didn't realize that it would cause such a big problem. Minky called an internal meeting and planned to let Sora join the design team to work together on the design. Hayami's identity was discovered, and she tried her best to prevent Sora from joining the design team. However, Sehun and Minky insisted that Sora join the design team. With no choice, Hayami had to agree. As soon as the meeting ended, the malicious Hayami started to take action. That day, Sehun saw Sora being sent home by Minky and was furious. He immediately questioned the two of them if they were in a relationship. Sora was speechless and said, Does the person who walks me home mean we have a relationship? Sehun was angry when he saw that Sora didn't care. He spit in Sora's face. Sora shook his head when he thought about Sehun getting angry. Sehun went home and started doing math problems to vent, but all he could think about was Sora's figure. The next day Sehun was urged to get married by the Chable grandfather. Sehun said helplessly, Why should I get married when I'm so young? The grandfather said angrily, I told you to go on a blind date, so just go. Sehun could not resist and had to go on a blind date. Coincidentally, he met his partner, Hayami, in the restaurant. Sehun was restless during the blind date, thinking about Sora, so he sent Hayami a text message for help. Then Hayami pretended to be Japanese to fool Sehun's blind date. The two thought that the other person could not understand them and were happy. Unexpectedly, the blind date also spoke Japanese. This left the two of them with embarrassment. Hayami had long had feelings for Sehun. She took this opportunity to ask Sehun to watch a horror movie with her, and the whole time she pretended to be scared so that Sehun could comfort her. But Sehun also cowered in fear. On the way back, Hayami deliberately scared Sehun, which made Sehun think of Sora just waking up. Then he took Hayami to the front door of Sora's house. Hayami looked at the familiar route and felt guilty. She was afraid of being discovered by acquaintances and exposing her own identity, so she made an excuse to leave. When she turned around, she saw Sora. Sora looked at Hayami in surprise. On the way back, Hayami asked Minky why she was walking Sora home. Minky said we are no longer in a relationship, so I don't need to tell you. Hayami began to sow discord and said, Aren't you curious why I was alone with your brother so late at night? The next day, Hayami found Sora, Sehun and Mingji. This is not the first time you have met. How did you meet them? Sora was puzzled and asked, Why do you ask? After Hayami's repeated questioning, she told the whole story. Sora learned that the colleague who stole her work would be fired, so she went to Sehun to beg for mercy. She even spent a lot of money to buy Sehun the most expensive coffee. She only ordered the cheapest water. Sehun didn't understand why Sora was so naive, but Sora still kept pleading for her colleague. Sehun looked at the kind Sora pleading bitterly and felt sorry for her, so she agreed. The incident of the colleague plagiarizing the work became known to everyone. The company even held a special investigation meeting for this reason. Sora naively thought that her colleague would admit to plagiarizing her design, but Sound immediately denied it and even lied, saying that she got the design from another company. Hayami prepared fake information in order to get rid of Sora. The people at the investigation meeting were very surprised when they saw the information and questioned Sora about what was going on. Hayami once again helped Sound explain and said that Sora had also plagiarized the design of another company. The wrong Sora hurriedly explained, but she had no evidence. Minky promised to investigate and confirm the matter. Hayami once again stepped forward to stop him, telling him that this information had been obtained secretly from an acquaintance. If it were exposed, the company would face a great crisis. These words made the investigators a little scared. Sora once again explained that she had created the design herself. Hayami saw her flustered and immediately questioned her. Could it be that another company stole your design? Seeing Sora so anxious, she had already cried. Hayami couldn't help but reveal a wicked smile. The investigation ended so absurdly. As soon as Sora finished, she ran to Hayami's office and questioned her. Could this not be something you planned? Hayami appeared calm on the surface, but she was panicking inside. Sora said that although the truth would be confused, there would definitely be a day when the truth came out. Hayami gave a disdainful laugh and said, "Are you going to tell me what to do again?" Sora no longer acted as weak as usual and questioned her. "Why are you so afraid of me? I've never been able to figure it out. What is the reason for your eagerness to get rid of me? Is there something else you're hiding besides the fact that you were adopted?" Hayami's eyes widened. "I know you've never liked me, but you've never shown any signs of fear. But now you give me the impression that you're very afraid of me," the malicious Hayami said disdainfully. "Back then, when I gave you the opportunity to resign, you didn't cherish it, and now you dare to play the bully with me. You really are pitiful. You'd better leave on your own before I call security to drag you away." Sora looked at the merciless Hayami and felt very puzzled. On the other side, Sehun found the Chable grandfather and said that he could testify for Sora that she had not plagiarized. The grandfather told him that you should know what decision the investigation team will make. Sehun angrily left after hearing this. Sora looked at the team members who had worked together and apologized to everyone before leaving alone. She didn't know that the person coming towards her was her biological father. Minky couldn't bear to see her get hurt, so he chased after her. Sehun, on the other hand, hurried out of the door to look for Sora, but he didn't know that Sora had just come to the office to look for him. As a result, the two of them missed their chance to meet. Sehun ran to Sora's office. Not seeing anyone, he immediately rushed out into the street. At this time, Sora had just left the company. Once again, the two of them missed each other. Sora looked at the company with tears in her eyes and thought about her dream of becoming a handbag designer. When she first arrived at the company, she was only doing menial tasks, but she never expected to be framed and forced to leave. Sora's tears could no longer be stopped. When she passed by the coffee shop, she thought about redeeming a free cup of coffee. She looked up and saw the wall full of redemption coupons and discovered that they were all in her name. The clerk said that a man had hung them up. Sehun couldn't find Sora and was preparing to go back, when he suddenly remembered the coffee shop they had visited together. He rushed over immediately, but he didn't see Sora either. But he found that all the coupons were gone. He learned from the clerk that they had just been picked up. Sehun hurried to the bus stop. At this time, Sora was already waiting for the bus. When Sehun arrived, Sora had already left, so the two still didn't meet. Back at the office, Sehun was resting when he prepared to call Sora. Suddenly, he saw the phone on the table, which he had given to Sora. At this time, Minky called, which made Sehun curious about the relationship between the two. Sehun finds Sora and shows her a photo. "Don't you have any similar evidence to prove it?" Sora is surprised to see herself in the photo. She remembers being misunderstood 9 years ago. It turned out to be the person in front of her. Sehun says arrogantly, "I'm so handsome, and you can't even remember." He was just about to take out the gift in his pocket. He immediately says goodbye to Sora and drives off in his luxury car to find Minky. Sehun asks his brother if he likes Sora. "No matter what kind of relationship you have, just end it quickly. I just realized now that I like Sora." Minky is surprised to see Sehun, who has never been interested in women. Sehun asks if he really doesn't have feelings for Sora. Minky responds indifferently. Sora returns home and her uncle tells her that she can't be wronged like this. Jinky scolds Sora for not letting her go to work at the company in the first place, for disobeying her elders and being so stubborn. Jaehwan tells his wife to shut up and stop talking, but Jinky said, "If you don't have a job, we'll starve." Sora saw this and immediately said, "Don't worry, I'll find a job tomorrow." Jaehwan looked at his mean-spirited wife and said, "We're still in good health, so how can we keep exploiting a little girl?" Back in her room, Sora suddenly remembered what Sehun had said. "Don't give up this time. You'll definitely find a way to clear your name." The next day, Sora went to the company's top management, but the secretary wouldn't let her in. At that moment, President Choi walked by, and after Sora explained the reason for her visit, President Choi said flatly, "It doesn't matter if you plagiarized someone else's design. Even if what you say is true, the company won't suffer huge losses just for you." Sora didn't know that President Choi was her biological father, and still held on to the last shred of hope. "I know what you're saying." After handing President Choi a newspaper, she turned and left. It turned out that Sora had idolized President Choi. He once said that as long as you dare to dream, you can definitely make it. President Choi looked at what he had once said and fell into deep thought. Hayami learned that her brother had come to the company to find her and directly reported him to the police. Jaehwan found his daughter and asked about Sora's dismissal. What he didn't know was that Sora's current appearance was caused by his daughter. Hayami said viciously, "I won't help her. She plagiarized someone else's design, which is a very serious crime." Jaehwan hurriedly explained, "I can guarantee that Sora is not like that." Hayami said, "It's easy for me to reinstate her. but I don't like her working in the same company as me. Jae-hwan is annoyed to see his selfish daughter today. Sora, who has left the company, continues to set up a stall when there is no business. She buries herself in designing sketches. Suddenly, her best friend calls and says she wants to introduce her to a part-time job. That day, Sara came to work. She is very serious about this hard-won job. She doesn't know that her beloved Chable aunt just passed her by. Sara is in a hurry to rush back with the customer's clothes. When she gets out of the elevator, she misses her Chable aunt again. At this time, an electrician called out her aunt's name, and Sara reflexively looked over, shocked. But Mrs. Wu did not know that the girl in front of her was Sora. Sara did not want to lose her aunt again and frantically pursued. She saw a person with a back similar to her aunt's and excitedly rushed up, only to realize that she had mistaken the person. Just as Sora hurriedly ran down the stairs, she missed her aunt again. In this way, the two still did not meet. Sara sat on the roadside in a state of collapse, blaming herself for being in a daze just now, which caused her to miss the opportunity to recognize each other. She hurried to the villa where she was supposed to meet her aunt to ask about the situation. She learned that the other person had already moved. Sara left the villa helplessly, sitting alone on the roadside. At this time, Minky happened to pass by and asked what was going on. Sara explained that it was the person she lived with her aunt. Minky asked in surprise, "Is that the aunt you wrote to?" Minky was afraid that Sora was cold and took her to a restaurant to get some air conditioning. Sara said that she was still young when her aunt had an accident, and 17 years have passed, so she didn't recognize me. Minky said that she also knew a person who was in a vegetative state and then woke up, but lacked some memories. "Let's work together to find your aunt." Back home, Mrs. Wu felt very puzzled. "Today, I met a girl, and her image has been in my mind ever since." Her husband comforted her, saying that it should be the salesperson at the luxury goods store you often go to. After hearing this, Mrs. Wu's doubts were dispelled a little. The next day, Sara went to the community to find out what happened, but the staff could not disclose personal information. Minky also asked someone to help look for her, but the result was not satisfactory. As soon as Sora returned home, she was scolded by Jinky. When she said that she had seen her aunt, Jinky panicked immediately. After hearing Sora say that the two had not met, Jinky pretended to be calm and struck Sora. How could a comatose patient wake up? She turned her head and revealed a terrified expression. The vicious Jinky immediately contacted Hayami to discuss a countermeasure. On the other side, Minky found the address and the name on the door was exactly the name of Sora's aunt. Just as he was surprised, he turned around and saw Hayami. Hayami immediately asked, "How do you know my home address?" Minky said, "I remember that your mother was a painter before she went abroad." Hayami's heart was already in turmoil. Then she quickly found her mother to discuss a countermeasure, and Mrs. Wu was right behind them. The mother and daughter were afraid of being exposed and quickly excused themselves. At this time, Mrs. Wu noticed something was wrong with them. She always felt that the two were hiding something. Her husband doesn't care and says it's someone else's business. Hayami is extremely worried that Sora will tell the truth. If that happens, she won't be able to live a normal life as a daughter-in-law. Jinky comforts her, saying that if I take Sora with me when I go abroad, your identity won't be exposed. Minky finds out the truth and learns that the aunt Sora has been looking for is Hayami's mother. He then asks Sora if she has seen Hayami's mother before. Sora knows that she has to help Hayami keep her secret and not cause her any trouble, so she says she hasn't seen her before. It is precisely this sentence that makes her realize that the day she will find the Chable aunt is even more remote. Minky, with doubts, went to Hayami to find some useful clues, but Hayami instead asked him if Sora had ever said that she knew Hayami. However, with Minky's sharp questioning, Hayami felt that she would lose if she spoke too much, so she immediately pretended to have angina. And then she said deliberately, "I'm not my parents' biological daughter. 10 years ago, they wanted to adopt a child, but their foster mother unfortunately had a car accident and became a vegetable." After she woke up, she couldn't find the whereabouts of the adopters. Her foster father was afraid that she would worry, so he asked me to pretend to be that child. Hayami asked Minky to keep it a secret. Otherwise her adoptive mother's health would be affected if she knew the truth. Minky could only hide this matter. Then he told Sora that in fact, his aunt adopted the wrong person. After recovering her memory, "She will definitely find you." Sora was very happy to learn that her aunt's health is slowly recovering. She is also glad that she did not go directly to her aunt. If her aunt knew the truth, she would definitely be shocked. Minky could not bear to see Sora sad, so he found Hayami again, and asked her puzzled why she was afraid to tell Sora the truth. Hayami said with justification, "I haven't done anything wrong, so why should I tell her myself?" Minky told her that Sora was worried about her mother's health and didn't want to see her. Hayami felt very happy when she heard this. When Sora returned home, she burst into tears. Her aunt, who had been lost for 7 years, was now close at hand, but she could not see her. Sora fainted from excessive yearning. Jaehwan found her and took her to the hospital. Sora, who was unconscious, kept mumbling her aunt's name. When Sora woke up, she was very confused. Her uncle's address and phone number had not changed. Minky said that her Chable aunt had contacted the family, but she herself did not know about it. Jaehwan immediately found his wife and persuaded her to tell the truth. But Jinky, who wanted her daughter to be rich and herself to be able to live a life in high society, was not willing to give up so easily. Jaehwan, who still had a shred of conscience, wanted to tell the truth, but under the pressure of his evil wife, he finally chose to compromise. Jinky infiltrated the house to monitor Mrs. Wu's recovery and take care of Hayami. One day, while cleaning, she saw a row of picture boards. She remembered her daughter saying that her adoptive mother was a painter. However, Jinky did not expect to find a portrait of Sora as a child. Jinky panicked and fled the villa with the portrait. President Min returned home at this time and saw Jinky suspiciously taking a picture board. He told his wife about it. Mrs. Wu immediately looked for her own picture board and found that the portrait of Sora as a child had been taken. The two were very puzzled by Jinky's behavior. That day, Sora was surprised to see Hayami calling Mrs. Wu mommy. Minky saw that Sora was in a strange state and quickly helped her onto the sofa. Sora questioned why he hadn't told her that her adoptive mother had adopted the wrong person. Hayami. Sora looked at him as he stuttered and stammered, and broke down and ran out. She couldn't believe that everyone around her was deceiving her. Sora recalled that back then, Jinky suddenly wanted to send Hayami abroad, and that night Hayami asked her about the secret between her and her aunt. It turned out that she had been deceived from that moment on. Sora, who had figured everything out, burst into tears. At this moment, Hayami suddenly felt a panic in her heart, but she didn't care and continued to happily eat dinner with her Chable aunt. As soon as she returned home, Sora was accused by Jinky of not working and not realizing that she had returned to cook. Sora looked at the mean-spirited Jinky and felt heartbroken. Jaehwan came out at that moment. Sora looked at her only relative and couldn't help but explode. Why didn't you tell me that it was my Aunt Chable who adopted Hayami? You even deceived me and said that my aunt would never wake up. Jinky was so scared that she even dropped the basin to the ground. The weak Jaehwan was speechless in the face of Sora's questioning. Jinky, however, said that Hayami's grades were better than Sora's and of course she was more suitable for further studies abroad. Jaehwan, who still had a little conscience, kept apologizing to Sora. He also wants to take Sora to meet her aunt. Seeing this, Jinky immediately blocked the door and begged Sora not to go and expose Hayami. Sora looked at Jinky's selfishness and finally exploded. Hayami accidentally saw a text message from her real mother saying that Sora knew everything. Hayami was so scared that she immediately called back. Just as the phone connected, Hayami's eyes were full of fear, and what she saw was Sora. Sora questioned Hayami. Doesn't your conscience hurt when you deceive others? What did I do wrong? Why are you treating me like this? But Hayami didn't show the slightest sign of remorse. For you, being poor or rich doesn't matter, but it's very important to me. That poor home is unbearable for me. Unexpectedly, the vicious Hayami threatened Sora with her aunt's health. Her body can't take this kind of shock if you don't care. Just tell the truth. Sora angrily slapped Hayami. Don't pretend to care about your aunt, I will never forgive you until I die. Hayami suddenly pretended to be heartbroken and collapsed to the ground to avoid talking to Sora. The kind-hearted Sora still took her to the hospital. Sora hid on the side and watched. She longed to see her aunt, but she couldn't go up to her. Sad, Sora cried on the chair all night. Jinky slept soundly that night. She also told her husband not to let Sora tell the truth. At this time, Sora was preparing to say goodbye to them with her luggage. Jinky said, Hayami still wants to send you to study abroad. Do you think Hayami is only enjoying herself at the rich family instead of you? Sora didn't want to deal with the selfish Jinky and got up to leave directly. She looked at the place where she had lived for 10 years with a broken heart. Sora was full of despair for this painful place. The next day, Hayami knelt in front of Sora. I was wrong. I shouldn't have been adopted by the Chable instead of you. Sora looked at Hayami with cold eyes. Hayami trembled and said, please don't tell the truth. At that moment, Mrs. Wu was carrying fruit and going upstairs. Sora said condescendingly, you can continue to live in this family. Hayami looked at Sora in disbelief. You pretend to be me 24 hours a day, and you keep hiding it from auntie and uncle. Mrs. Wu was puzzled when she heard what Sora said. I'll see when you'll crack. After saying that, Sora turned around and left directly. However, she didn't expect that her long-cherished aunt was at the door. Mrs. Wu saw her adopted daughter kneeling on the ground and chased after her. scolding Sora severely. Hayami hurriedly stopped her adoptive mother from exposing the truth. I will tell you everything later. Sora saw her once beloved aunt now suffering from amnesia but defending Hayami, and felt heartbroken. As soon as Sora left, Hayami pretended to be aggrieved with her Chable adoptive mother. It's because I exposed her for stealing other people's designs that she came to trouble me. The simple adoptive mother believed her nonsense. Back in her room, Hayami saw Sora's mother's photo and tore it into pieces to vent her anger. With nowhere else to go, Sora had to go to her best friend's house. Sehun hadn't seen Sora for a few days and couldn't bear to miss her, so he went straight to her house. He peeked through the window. Sora's cousin came out, which surprised him. Sehun hurriedly asked him where Sora was. As it turned out, Junwoo didn't know as much as Sehun. Sehun was so angry that he couldn't speak. Later, he went to Sora's best friend, but she didn't tell Sehun where Sora was. After returning home, she told Sora that Sehun had come to see her. Sora was still wondering why Sehun had come to see her. As a result, Sehun rushed in directly. Naeon hurriedly explained to Sora, "It wasn't me who betrayed you." Sehun saw Sora's luggage and took it directly and put it in the car. Then he forced Sora into the car and drove off. Sora, who was in the car, looked unhappy. Sehun grabbed her hand and said, "I heard that a person's body temperature can comfort others." Sora, who had just experienced pain, felt the warmth and tears flowed uncontrollably. Sehun took Sora to his luxurious villa, but in order not to make her feel inferior, Sehun deliberately said that the house belonged to a friend. When they arrived at the door, Sora was afraid to go in. She looked surprised at the living room, which was even bigger than her house. Sehun pretended not to care and pulled her in. After a while, he realized that Sora had fallen asleep from exhaustion. Sehun thoughtfully made her lunch and hurried off to work. Sora woke up and saw that no one was in the room. In the dining room, she accidentally saw the heart-shaped lunchbox. Sora suddenly felt that this rich second generation was cute. She looked forward to picking up the spoon and taking a bite. The taste was a bit hard to accept. She was just about to take the plate away when she noticed that Sehun had actually left after-school homework. Sehun asked her to draw the figure on the blackboard with a single stroke. Sora tried many times but couldn't get it right, so she went out to find some inspiration. Sehun returned home after finishing his work and found Sora sitting in the doorway. It turned out that she didn't know the door code. Sehun saw that Sora hadn't solved the homework she had left for herself, so he went up to her and gave her careful instructions. That night, Sora dared only to curl up on the luxurious sofa and sleep. Sehun was afraid that Sora would be uncomfortable, so he slept alone in the car. Sehun, who is busy going to work, does not forget to take care of Sora. He asks his secretary to order a luxurious takeaway for her. Mrs. Wu is shocked when she sees Hayami's lucky bag open while putting clothes away. She runs back to her room and puts the torn photos back together. Mrs. Wu looks at the woman in the photo in surprise. Sehun deliberately injures his leg to attract Sora's attention. Seeing Sora's packed luggage, he immediately starts to wail. Sora asks him concernedly if he wants to go to the hospital. Sehun said nonchalantly, "I'm fine. Are you packing to leave?" Sora said, "I don't feel comfortable living in your house forever." Sehun said dejectedly, "Then go." Unexpectedly, Sora really went to pack her things. Sehun sat on the sofa with a cool expression, but every now and then he looked back. Seeing Sora put on her luggage and say goodbye to him, Sehun immediately let out a series of screams. Sora looked at Sehun in puzzlement. Sehun said with a painful expression, "It's fine," just as Sora was hesitating whether to leave. Sehun pretended to be pitiful and said he was hungry. In the end, the simple Sora stayed. Sehun smiled triumphantly and looked expectantly at Sora, who brought in the food. Sora said, "I'll be leaving soon. After you finish eating, just put it in the sink." Sehun hurriedly said, "Why are you so impersonal?" At this time, Hayami came to the door and knocked. Before Sehun could react, she barged in. Sora was startled when she saw Hayami. Seeing that Hayami was about to come to the dining room, Sora hid in a hurry. Sehun anxiously looked for Sora's figure. Seeing that she was hiding in the kitchen, he immediately diverted Hayami's attention. At this time, Hayami found that there was no water to drink and was about to go to the refrigerator to get some. Sora was afraid of being discovered and hid directly behind the sofa. Suddenly, she thought of what Hayami had once said to herself, that she and Sehun were dating. Sora couldn't help but sneer at this scumbag in her heart. After waiting for them to finish eating, Hayami accidentally saw the bag on the sofa, and it was the same bag that Sora had been carrying when she arrived at her house. Hayami senses that Sora may be hiding out at Sehun's house. She pretends not to care as she leaves. but on the way to the door she sees familiar shoes, which confirms her suspicions. Sora asks Sehun why Hayami is here. Sehun hastily explains that she didn't invite her. It was Hayami who suddenly came over. Sora feels uncomfortable and prepares to leave. Sehun still doesn't know that Hayami is the one who stole Sora's identity. Sora, who left Sehun's house, had nowhere to go, and could only go to the 24-hour Jimjilbang to stay. Sora persevered in sending her resume to various companies in order to be able to communicate with outstanding designers. Sehun, on the other hand, missed Sora while doing math problems. That day, Hayami deliberately drove her car into Sehun, and Sehun wailed and collapsed to the ground. She hurriedly took him to the hospital. Hayami said that she would take responsibility for him. Sehun, who is not interested in women, quickly refused. He took just 2 steps but accidentally fell. Hayami immediately reached out and grabbed Sehun's hand, then helped him to his feet. After she dropped Sehun off at his luxurious villa, she thoughtfully went up to him and held him up. Sehun saw that Hayami was being so annoying and directly and angrily asked her to go away. Hayami said with reluctance, "Then I'll come pick you up for work tomorrow." Sehun quickly refused, saying, "I can take a taxi by myself." But Hayami still insisted on picking Sehun up for work. Sehun let out a deep sigh when he saw the difficult Hayami finally leave. Unexpectedly, as soon as he left the next day, he saw Hayami. Hayami deliberately cooed at Sehun. "I have to do this every day, picking you up and dropping you off." Sehun immediately refused. "You're going to make me sick of this." On the other side, Sora received a phone call. It turned out that the resume she had submitted had finally received a response. Sora was very happy to hear that she had been selected for an interview. Unexpectedly, the first thing the personnel manager said was that she had to hand over the design rights. The smile on Sora's face instantly disappeared. She asked in confusion why she had to hand over the design rights to them. The personnel department directly stated their reason. "In your current capacity of plagiarizing other people's designs, even if you go to an outside company, you will not be able to work as a designer." Hearing this, Sora's heart felt a chill. The other party asked her to name a price to transfer the design rights. However, Sora would not sell her design rights for money. After refusing, she took the design book and left directly, but she would get the same result if she went to another company. Her best friend advised Sora to sell the design rights so that she could make a living. "Do you want to live in a sweat room for the rest of your life?" Just as Sora was about to say something, she received a phone call. It turned out that her previous partner wanted to meet with Sora. The partner said, "If you want to cooperate in depth, you can watch how we make the show." Sora was very grateful that the other party had not forgotten about herself. She volunteered to adjust the display of the handbags. Sora was very happy to see her own design on TV. The partner's face also showed a satisfied smile. Sora turned around and accidentally saw her uncle, which surprised her. Jaehwan sincerely apologized to Sora. "I really did something wrong. I hope you can go back to that home." Sora could never go back to that horrible place. With nowhere else to go, she moved into the sauna. She turned around and saw Sehun, who was injured. Sehun saw someone lying next to Sora and immediately went over. At that moment, another strange man came. Sehun was so angry that he sat up straight. He immediately dragged his crippled body and carried a pile of sandbags and spread them out next to Sora. After doing all this, Sehun happily lay down. Sora woke up and started designing on the draft. Sehun suddenly handed over a plate of eggs. Sora avoided it with disgust. He accidentally came to the sauna and saw a couple fighting inside, so he reached out and called Sora over. But Sora was busy designing and didn't pay any attention to him. The next day, she still found a company with a good reputation and was prepared to transfer the rights to her design. The person in charge said that she also had to sign a confidentiality contract. After thinking about it, Sora took out a pen and started to sign. But when it came to affixing her seal, Sora still didn't want to just hand over her hard-won design like that. After hesitation, she refused to sign the contract, apologized to the person in charge, and hurriedly left. Sora returned to the sweat room and immediately posted her design on the website. Unexpectedly, once it was posted, it attracted the attention of all parties. Sora sensed that this was her opportunity to return to the Mirai Group. On the other side, the designers at Mirai Group were amazed by Sora's advanced design capabilities after seeing the design pictures. Hayami slammed her hand on the table after seeing Sora's design that had gone viral online. She immediately called a meeting to oust Sora. "We are not going to release this stolen design." Minky immediately objected. "The public already considers this design to be the company's exclusive property. If it is released by another company, we will once again be accused of plagiarism." At this time, Sora found the company's president Choi. "Whether your company releases my design or hides it forever, as long as I release the design elsewhere, You will face the risk of being questioned, President Choi said without caring. Are you going to blackmail us? But after thinking about it, he felt that Sora's design would do more good than harm to the company. So he asked Sora what conditions she was prepared to offer. Sora said that before the design was released, she wanted to join the company as a designer and gain the highest authority. The next day, Sora returned to the future group with a new identity. She was no longer a part-time student who could be bullied. Hayami was completely flustered when she met Sora at the company again. On her first day of work, Sora was assigned to clean the storage room, while Sora was cleaning diligently. Soon, who had set her up before, was also assigned there. Soon pretended to be pitiful and asked Sora to forgive her. The kind-hearted Sora immediately forgave her and even welcomed her. Soon immediately pretended to be touched. Hayami went to President Choi and said, "Since we are partners, I hope we will be notified of even the smallest personnel changes." President Choi acted as if he didn't care. Sora's placement in the company was useful. Although the group was divided into two design teams, on the surface you were competing, but in the end, only you can be sold. Hayami was very puzzled by what President Choi said. The two design teams were having a meeting to discuss design plans. The two teams would compete to determine the style to be released next season. Sora knew that it would be difficult to beat a brand with a century-old craftsmanship. She proposed to develop a special leather. Her colleagues were a little puzzled by this. The unit price of this leather was too high for mass production. Sora gave her a detailed explanation. Sehun suddenly saw Sound writing something without saying a word and asked her why she didn't make a suggestion. Sound, who had come to her senses, said she agreed with Sora's suggestion. As soon as the meeting was over, Sound leaked the content of the meeting. "They want to start with the special leather, but I have no interest in listening to them." Then she said disdainfully, "I'm very uncomfortable staying with Sora. When can I leave?" The female boss threatened her, "Don't forget who kept your current position." Sora met Minky when she got out of the elevator. Minky apologized to Sora. "You asked me to investigate the Chable Ant's adoption. I didn't mean to hide it from you." Sora said flatly, "I know Hayami was your first love. That's why you didn't tell me the truth. Have you and Hayami resolved your misunderstanding now?" Sora was afraid that Minky would doubt life if she knew the truth, so she kept quiet. Sehun gave up his luxurious office in order to stay with Sora and moved into the utility room together. Sora saw this and asked him curiously why he had moved here. Sehun hurriedly explained that they were both members of the same team, so why couldn't he come and work together? Sora was even more puzzled. "Isn't your room bigger than this office?" Sehun felt that Sora was talking too much. "If you don't mind, you can move into that room." Soohyun suddenly suggested that we go to the gallery to do market research. "We've been sitting here racking our brains, so why don't we go out for a bit to get some inspiration?" Sehun was a little suspicious of her motives, but his IQ was close to zero as he was about to fall in love. Seeing that no one else objected, he agreed. Sora's profound commentary on the paintings left Sehun confused. Just as they were looking at the next painting, Mrs. Wu walked across the street. At this time, Sora still didn't know that his beloved aunt was just a few steps away from herself. Mrs. Wu was chatting with a friend when her face suddenly changed. The Sora in front of her was the person who had forced Hayami to kneel down in her house the last time. She didn't want to meet Sora and asked her friend to leave the gallery with her, but she didn't expect to still meet Sora in the toilet. At this time, Mrs. Wu didn't have a good impression of Sora. "You made my adopted daughter kneel down for you, which made me feel very uncomfortable. No matter what your reasons are for bullying my adopted daughter, I hope you will not approach her again." Sora felt very disappointed when he saw his aunt so protect Hayami. Mrs. Wu suddenly called out to Sora, who was about to leave, and asked in confusion, "Have we met before? I felt that you looked familiar the last time you came to my house." Sora was afraid that telling the truth would cause her aunt's condition to worsen, so she could only continue to hide the truth. Seeing the other party just leave like that, while oneself was unable to do anything about it, the feeling of not being able to meet each other caused Sora's heart to completely collapse. She directly collapsed to the ground. Sehun hurriedly went up to Sora when he saw her crying sadly and gently helped her up. Sora and Sehun, who had recovered their good mood, were ready to continue their market research. Sora took out her phone and started taking pictures of passers-by. Suddenly, she saw a very distinctive bag and went straight up to the man. Sehun came back with milk tea and found Sora chatting with a man, which made him unhappy immediately. Sora wanted to see the material of the man's bag, but this man actually flirted with her and even tried to hug her. Fortunately, Sehun stopped him in time. Sehun then took out a wad of money and bought the bag. Sora was very surprised to see such a rare bag in front of her, but she still scolded Sehun for spending money recklessly. Sehun said with grievance, "I didn't buy it for just anyone. but she didn't even say thank you and she's blaming me. Sora was very tempted by this limited edition bag and was prepared to stay up all night to study it thoroughly. She suddenly recalled the scene when she ran into the Chable auntie during the day. Sora wondered if the auntie had recognized herself, but 17 years had passed, and Aunt Chable had lost her memory, so she dismissed the thought. The two of them walked listlessly out of the office and happened to meet Hayami, who had come to work. Hayami looked at the two of them and was very suspicious. Sehun muttered under his breath, "I hate women who work hard," and Sora seemed to suddenly have an idea while brushing her teeth in the bathroom. She immediately rushed into the men's bathroom and excitedly told Sehun her idea, but she accidentally saw a colleague next to her who was going to the bathroom and quickly ran out in fear. Sehun apologizes awkwardly to his colleague. Sora immediately calls a meeting to share the inspiration she just had. While the scheming girl Soan is thinking about how to leak it out and turns around to report the content of the meeting to Hayami, Hayami directly finds Sora and tells her disdainfully that the ideas in the meeting are impossible to achieve. But Sora already knew that there was a spy in the group. She told Hayami nonchalantly, "Although I think you have been scheming since you were young, you have always been a smart person. If you continue to make me angry like this, I'll just go straight to my aunt and tell her the truth." Hayami couldn't believe that Sora would threaten oneself. Sora said coldly, "Don't you dare try to challenge my bottom line." Jae-hwan, on the other hand, who was suffering from a guilty conscience, persuaded his wife to quickly tell the truth. But Jinky kept stopping her husband in order to protect her daughter's life as a rich girl. Jae-hwan didn't want to put up with such a selfish wife anymore. Finally, he couldn't hold back any longer and wanted to tell the truth to the Chable family. Hayami panicked when she heard the news and immediately tried to stop Jae-hwan. She saw her daughter's call and hung up hard-heartedly. Just as he was about to tell the Chable family the truth, Hayami appeared. The weak Jae-hwan finally held back and persuaded his daughter to stop. Sora already knew the truth. How long can you keep it a secret? But why would Hayami abandon her hard-won Chable status? At this moment, she was already blinded by vanity. Jae-hwan looked at his calculating daughter in despair, and regretted helping her hide the truth from the beginning, causing her to become so vain, while Hayami was thinking of a more sinister plan. On the other side, the adoptive mother couldn't get through to Hayami on the phone and told her husband about her suspicions. "Why did Jae-hwan go to the company to look for you today?" President Min was also baffled. "Is there something going on in Hayami's family that she's hiding from me?" Mrs. Wu suddenly remembered that Hayami didn't recognize her biological mother when she saw her photo. "Last time when I helped Hayami clean her room, I saw her mother's photo and she tore it to pieces." These things gradually made the wealthy parents suspicious. Sora's design team was originally equipped with a sample production room, but after being targeted, it was only equipped with a dedicated technician. A colleague said that this technician, Changmin, likes to drink. The samples he makes all depend on his mood. Sora became even more suspicious. "I heard that the things he makes are amazing." Just then, Changmin came in drunk and told Sora to get him a cup of coffee. Sehun was furious. "How dare you tell my lover what to do in front of me? Even if your craftsmanship is the best in the world, I won't work with someone like you," Changmin said with a grievance. "I just want a cup of coffee, but you guys drove me away." No matter how Sora tried to persuade Changmin, it was useless. Sora turned around and scolded Sehun. "We all have to submit our samples. What are we going to do now?" In the evening, she stayed behind to select the leather for the bag. Sehun came over with some food. Sora was puzzled. "What are you doing here after work?" Sehun gave a vague answer that he was looking for something. He couldn't help smiling at Sora's serious expression. Seeing that Sora was so tired, he thoughtfully put a pillow under her head. The next day, Hayami found Sora and warned her, "Don't even think about getting my foster mother's approval. I worked really hard to earn their love. Even if they find out I'm fake, they won't kick me out. If you want to tell her the truth, hurry up." Hayami's words pierced Sora's heart. She just wanted to fight back, but Sora grabbed her wrist. Sora's domineering counterattack made Hayami feel threatened. Hayami was shocked to see such a strong Sora. Back at the company, she instructed her subordinates to make a plan against Sora. After she finished speaking, a sneer appeared at the corner of Hayami's mouth. Sora asked around to find someone who could make the sample on time. The leather boss saw the design Sora brought and said that as long as there was a new machine, it would be very simple. However, someone who knows leather well is also needed to reduce the failure rate. At this time, the leather boss asked Sora in doubt, "Don't you know Changmin at the company?" Sora asked in surprise, "Is that the technician who loves to drink?" The boss was even more puzzled. "There is such a good technician, but he came to me for help." Sora quickly ran back to the company and asked Sehun to go with her to find someone. Sehun was surprised and asked, "Aren't you in a hurry to make the sample?" Sora was so anxious that she kept urging Sehun. Sehun had no choice but to go with Sora. However, No matter how Sora talked to Changmin, Changmin still ignored her. Sora suddenly realized that Sehun had offended him. She asked Changmin to forgive Sehun for his rude behavior before. Sora saw that Sehun was not very happy and forced him to apologize. Sehun said reluctantly, "I'm sorry," and Sora followed up with a few kind words. Changmin, however, demanded that Sora sing a few songs before he would forgive her. Sora could only agree so that her work could be produced. Sehun watched in disbelief as Sora actually started singing. Changmin was very satisfied when he heard Sora's singing. Sora was very happy when she saw Changmin give her a thumbs up. However, Sehun was so angry that she told her not to sing anymore in the future. Sora was very puzzled. Is my singing that bad? Sehun saw that Sora still didn't know his feelings for her, so he had to speak his mind. Every time I see you humbling yourself and begging, it breaks my heart, but there's nothing I can do. Every time I want to help you, I can't. I'm so angry with myself that I could die. Sehun is rich, but he doesn't know how to help the woman he loves. Sora thought back to how she and Sehun had met. She realized that whenever she encountered difficulties, he would always appear in time and take good care of her. Sora suddenly understands the feeling Sehun has for her, and goes directly to Sehun to ask if he likes her. The timid Sehun suddenly blushes and says, "You're just noticing now?" Sora's good feelings towards Sehun prompt him to be about to say yes, but Sehun asks her to go back and think about it before answering, because he is afraid that the disparity in status between the two will make Sora feel inferior. Sehun goes back to his room and starts to feel bad. What if Sora changes her mind? On the other side, Sora was also thinking back to what Sehun had said. She immediately rejected Sehun's confession. "I can't understand why you like me." Sehun was so angry that he interrupted Sora directly. "I don't want to hear what you're going to say next, just think of it as unrequited love." Sora didn't know that Hayami was eavesdropping behind her. Hayami found Sora and accused her of daydreaming. Sora, who had already seen through the scheming Hayami, said contemptuously, "What do you care about me?" Hayami angrily warned Sora, "Don't you try to be my rival. You are now just an ant at the bottom of my feet." Sora was not in the least afraid of Hayami's threats. "You said before that you were in a relationship with Sehun. Now it seems to be just a lie. I plan to accept Sehun's love from today onwards." Hayami is furious that Sora has easily obtained the love that she has been scheming to obtain. Sora returns to the office only to find that her design notebook is missing. At this time, a colleague tells her that someone is looking for her in the sample room. Sora goes to the sample room and finds all of her design notebooks. Changmin praises her, saying, "Your designs are very thoughtful, but how do you want me to improve the leather?" Sora said she wanted to make it softer. Changmin thought for a moment and said, "Your new product submission date is the day after tomorrow. Then you can take these back and use them. Pass the assessment and you'll be further processed." Sora was overjoyed at the fine workmanship of the leather. Changmin said, "Don't thank me. Thanks Sehun." It turned out that Sehun had found Changmin to sincerely apologize to him so that Sora's design could be delivered on time. After learning the truth, Sora hurriedly looked for Sehun, but he wasn't anywhere to be seen. No one answered the phone when she called. At this time Sehun was sitting in a luxury car, lost in thought. Just as Sora was walking up the stairs, her high heels suddenly fell off. Sehun happened to pass by at this time and saw it. He immediately took out an expensive handkerchief from his pocket and carefully helped Sora wipe off the dust. Sora's heart was completely captivated by Sehun. Sehun was still wondering why she came to his door. Sora said bluntly, "Actually, I don't dislike you." Sehun's heart was already in turmoil at this point. "If you're willing to let me slowly get closer to you step by step." At this point, Sora suddenly blushed a little. "I think I can give it a try." Sehun's heart was overjoyed, but she said with her mouth, "I can't do it. Let you try." Just as Sora thought she had been rejected, Sehun directly embraced her in his arms. At this time, someone knocked on the door, and Sora shyly ran out. That day, Sora was going to secretly go home and take her things with her. Unexpectedly, Jinky was also at home. Jinky saw Sora and directly mocked her. "What are you still doing in this house?" Sora was at a loss for words and said, "I came back to get my clothes." Jinky continued to speak harshly. "You still want to take more things when no one is home?" Sora felt speechless and wanted to leave. Jinky continued, "Even if we did something wrong, we have adopted you for so long, and even if we committed a capital crime against you, you cannot tell anyone the truth." Sora didn't want to respond and went back to her room to start packing her own clothes. Jinky saw that Sora was dawdling and not leaving, so she went directly to the door to urge her to pack up and leave quickly. The kind-hearted Sora was very grateful to Jinky for taking care of her over the years. However, Jinky hoped that Sora would keep her promise and not tell anyone about Hayami's identity theft. Sora left the house sadly. When she reached for her phone, she accidentally dropped her work ID. What Sora didn't know was that the man in front of her was her Chable aunt's husband. President Min picked up the work ID and was about to return it to Sora when he was shocked by the name on the ID. He couldn't believe that the girl in front of him was also named Sora. In order to confirm, he asked the girl her name. Unaware of this, Sora didn't care and just left. Just as President Min was about to say something, he was interrupted by Jinky's appearance. Jinky was afraid that the truth would be revealed, so she quickly pulled President Min away and kept looking back from time to time. President Min was puzzled and asked who the girl was. Jinky casually made an excuse and brushed it off. After President Min returned, he sent his secretary to investigate. The secretary took out the adoption information and recalled what Jinky had said. When she was adopted, Jinky said that the child could not be registered and was directly transferred to her family's household registration. President Min asked why the household registration and the person's name were different. The secretary replied that it was because the witch said that there was something wrong with her name, so she changed it. But this made President Min's doubts even stronger. The results of the next investigation, however, made him gasp in shock. Jinky was still lurking in the mansion, watching to see if Mrs. Wu had recovered her memory. At that moment, Mrs. Wu dreamed that the skinny Sora was instructed by Jinky to pick up broken glass. She woke up from the dream in a cold sweat when she thought about the poor child. When she turned around, she saw the vicious Jinky, and she was scared out of her wits. Mrs. Wu asked Jinky with her previous doubts in mind, "From what age did Sora grow up with you?" Jinky pretended to remember and said that Sora had come to our family when she was just born. Mrs. Wu felt very sorry in her heart. "If that's the case, then your feelings for her must be very good, right?" Jinky almost blurted out her daughter's name. Then she began to praise Sora's excellent grades. Mrs. Wu saw the pride on Jinky's face when she talked about Sora and felt even more that something was wrong. Jinky was surprised to see the shocked Mrs. Wu. Mrs. Wu used this as an excuse to leave directly. On the other side, Sora was worried that she would not be able to finish her work on time, so she asked Changmin for help. However, she was surprised to see Changmin's hands shaking uncontrollably while cutting. Changmin was afraid of revealing his physical problem and wanted Sora to leave quickly, but his hands kept shaking as he continued cutting. At this time, Sora smelled a strong smell of alcohol and asked Changmin suspiciously if he had been drinking. Changmin directly yelled at him, "I just had a little drink during dinner." Sehun asks Sora about his work on the surface, but in his hand he picks up his phone and sends Sora a text. "Let's have dinner together after work." After Sora sees Sehun's text, he replies, "I still need to follow up on some work." Sehun pouts and says just take an hour to have dinner. Sora tells Sehun that he will order takeaway that night so that he can finish his design as promised. Sehun gets angry and throws his phone aside. The other colleagues in the office had already discovered everything. Sound couldn't help but ask Sora, "You two were texting, weren't you?" Sora shyly went to the sample room and found Dae Changmin cutting fabric. Suddenly Changmin's hand slipped and cut his own finger. Sora was so scared that she wanted to take him to the hospital. Changmin quickly refused, saying, "I'm fine." Sora quickly took a cloth and wrapped it around his hand, but Changmin kept cutting with the knife and his hand kept shaking. His expression gradually became sad and he finally cried. Sora was very puzzled. Changmin laughed at himself, saying that he could no longer cut as smoothly as before. He begged Sora not to tell anyone. "I just need a few days to rest and I'll be fine." Then he wrote down an address and gave it to Sora. "This is my only rival in the handbag industry. If you tell him that I sent you, he will definitely do his best to help you make it." Sora asked him doubtfully. "Company policy states that samples cannot be made outside the company." Changmin, anxious to keep his job, said hurriedly that as long as the three of us kept quiet, who would know about it? But Sora is still worried and is about to report to the company. Changmin holds up his injured hand and begs Sora again. The kind-hearted Sora can only follow the address and go to the door. The other party said that the bag will be ready before tomorrow morning. Sora is very excited after hearing a positive answer. Yango starts to make the bag stitch by stitch. Sora is mesmerized by the sight. Finally, with the cooperation of the two, the finished product is finally made. On the way back, Sora encounters traffic congestion. On the other side, the appraisal meeting is about to begin. Sehun can't wait for Sora at the door, so he goes to Changmin to ask about the situation. Changmin doesn't tell the truth in order to keep his job. Seeing that the appraisal meeting has already begun but the sample is still not delivered, and all of this is in Hayami's hands, just as Sehun is anxious to tell the truth, Sora finally arrives at the venue. After that, the two teams began to introduce their bags, but the judges had already been bribed by Hayami in advance. As soon as the judging session ended, Hayami celebrated with her team, while Sora's team felt something was wrong. So on, however, said without caring that if you lose, You have to admit it boldly. Sehun took Sora to the rooftop and questioned her why she disappeared. Sora was afraid that the fact that she took the sample out to make it would be exposed, so she apologized quickly. As soon as the online judging session started, Sora's team was dozens of votes behind the other team, but at this time, Soan was laughing behind her back. Suddenly, the votes started to rise, gradually catching up with the score. Just as Sora's team members began to cheer, Soan's face fell. Hayami told Sehun the truth that she had hidden for many years, but the truth that came out of her mouth had reversed the black and white. Sehun's heart wavered. Seeing this, Hayami continued to lie. You first saw her at the airport, right? Sehun asked doubtfully. How did you know? Hayami pursued. Soon after, you met again at the company interview. Sora was blinded by her desire for revenge, which is why she went to such lengths to get into the company. You were just a tool for her to achieve her revenge. Sehun couldn't bear to believe that this was the truth. He got up and was about to leave, but Hayami's words directly broke down his inner defenses. Do you think her love for you is genuine? She knows that I like you, so she will take everything away from me. At this point, Sehun completely collapsed. The handbags that Sora had worked so hard to design appeared in large quantities on the market before they were even released. The leader came looking for him and demanded responsibility. The thing Sora feared most had happened. She ran out of the company in a panic. When she found the store of the commissioned designer Yango, she found that the person had already disappeared. At this time, Yango had already been summoned to the police station. He hurriedly distanced himself from the matter. Sora hurriedly came and asked anxiously, did you really leak this matter? However, Yango changed his previous kind face and instead blamed Sora. Sora knew she had been set up again, but she was still defending Yango. However, Yango once again blamed Sora. How could a major company take a sample outside to make it? Sora was still anxiously explaining, but she also realized in her heart that Yango had already been bribed. On the other side, the scheming Hayami decided to get rid of Sora. As soon as the appraisal meeting ended, she called a meeting and clearly told Sehun the seriousness of this incident. If Sora really deliberately leaked the design, she would be subject to criminal punishment. Sehun was afraid that Sora would be punished, so he hurried over. But then he suddenly remembered the process of meeting Sora and what Hayami had just said. He suddenly felt that this was really too much of a coincidence. At this time, Sora was unable to produce evidence, and under the interrogation of the police, any explanation seemed feeble and powerless. Sehun found Sora and asked her why she had hidden it. If you had told me in advance, we could have found another sample. Sora had already been wronged and was in tears, but Sehun was still blaming her for always thinking about others and not considering oneself when she encountered problems. She was framed by Hayami in her career and her lover didn't understand her in her relationship. Sora's heart was already broken into pieces. On the other side, Hayami found Sehun's chaebol grandfather. Sehun was dating a poor girl and even told him about this incident. Hayami pretended to be pitiful and said that she had been persuading Sehun to turn back. Sehun had already been confused by Sora's sweet words. The chaebol grandfather was very angry when he heard this and immediately called Sora to scold her severely. Sora hurriedly left the company. Sora anxiously explained to the chaebol chairman. The chairman even asked Sora to break up with Sehun. Sehun was in a desperate situation because he deliberately exposed himself in order to help you clear the false accusation of plagiarism. Sora only now realized Sehun's devotion to herself. The chaebol chairman continued to say that Sehun will also bear the responsibility for dissolving your design team. He didn't care about Sora's feelings at all. I can give you the money you want, but only if you don't fall in love with Sehun. Sora couldn't believe that the chaebol chairman would say such a thing. In the end, Sora chose the right to design and gave up Sehun. After hearing the news, Sehun hurried over and angrily asked her why she only wanted the right to design. Sora looked at Sehun in despair. What do you think I've let go of? But at this moment, Sehun had already been bewitched by Hayami. Did you already have a plan when you first met me? Sora's desperate heart, coupled with her lover's lack of understanding, has brought her to the brink of collapse. You're right. From the beginning, everything has been a lie. At this moment, Sehun's heart is already ashen, but there is still a glimmer of hope in his heart. Sehun can only release his emotions by getting drunk, but as soon as he wakes up, he learns that his grandfather is seriously ill and has been admitted to the hospital. President Choi tells him that your grandfather's blood pressure is unstable, and it was only with great difficulty that he survived the critical period. But Sehun doesn't know any of this. Sehun couldn't help but shed tears as he watched his unconscious grandfather. He blamed himself for getting drunk at a time like this. On the other side, President Choi went directly to Hyami and planned to take advantage of the Chaebol grandfather's absence to quickly dissolve Sehun's faction. But Hyami felt that the Chaebol grandfather was in the hospital and could not exceed his authority at this time. However, President Choi was determined to have his way and insisted that it must be dissolved this month. At this time, President Choi's subordinate Minky also came forward to oppose. It's not too late to wait until the Chaebol grandfather recovers and then make a decision. President Choi saw that his subordinates dared to oppose him and directly called them into his office to scold them. This is the perfect time to take control of the company. But Minky's kind nature prevented him from doing so. Although I was brought up by you, I will never do anything to betray the company. President Choi scolded Minky for being good for nothing. On the other side, the Chaebol grandfather finally woke up. Sehun was overjoyed to see his grandfather wake up and cried with happiness. The grandfather said that a real man cannot cry all the time. Sehun quickly apologizes to his grandfather and promises that he will not make the same mistake again. However, he cannot believe that Sora has been using him all along. On the other side, President Min learns that Hyami's ID number is the same as Jaewon's biological daughter's ID number. He then realizes that the daughter he has raised for 17 years is actually fake. Mrs. Wu also becomes panicked after hearing their conversation. At this time, Hyami does not know that her identity has been exposed. She is still trying hard to please the Chaebol grandfather. Grandpa Chaebol was very happy with Hyami's flattery and said he would persuade his grandson to marry her. But Sehun was very cold towards Hyami. Hyami felt very uncomfortable and took the opportunity to say, "Your design team will be forcibly disbanded by President Choi. You may even ask me for help one day, so be nice to me." Hyami deliberately brought desserts to please her adoptive mother, but her adoptive parents already had their suspicions about her. Mrs. Wu, whose health had not yet recovered, became even more confused when she heard the news. At this time, Hyami returned home and bought her adoptive mother's favorite dessert to surprise her. However, at this time, Mrs. Wu simply did not believe this fake adopted daughter. They did not know how many secrets Hyami was hiding. Hyami asked in puzzlement, "Is something wrong at home?" Mrs. Wu felt uncomfortable when she thought that the adopted daughter she had raised for 17 years was a fake. Hyami felt at a loss when she saw her adoptive mother's cold attitude. The adoptive father coped by saying that he wasn't feeling well. Hyami pretended to be concerned and asked if she had been to the hospital, but the adoptive father wasn't in the mood to continue talking to her, so he told his secretary to leave first. Hyami chased after the secretary directly to find out what had happened. The secretary coped by saying that she had to go and explain her work. Hyami hurried upstairs to visit her adoptive mother, but at this time, Mrs. Wu didn't want to see her at all. Hyami, who had returned to her room, panicked. But what she didn't know was that the thing she was most afraid of had already happened. Her husband comforted Mrs. Wu, saying, "No matter what happens in the future, you must not be soft-hearted." The kind-hearted Mrs. Wu was very scared and couldn't believe what the secretary had said. "If she really isn't the girl I'm going to adopt, what should I do?" Mrs. Wu couldn't believe that someone could be so heartless as to give away their own daughter for adoption. The next day, Hyami asked her adoptive mother if she was feeling better. When she saw that her adoptive mother wasn't paying any attention to her, she put on a sad face. President Min saw how cold his wife was and tried to explain. Hyami tried to ask her adoptive mother to have dinner together, but her adoptive mother gave her a cold shoulder and left directly. Hyami seemed to sense something in her heart, and the next day she warned Sora not to talk nonsense outside. Sora said disdainfully, "I never said anything because I didn't want to provoke Auntie Val, who has amnesia. But do you think you can hide it forever? Maybe they already know your real identity but are not telling you." Sora continued to mock Hyami. "Can't you live without setting me up every day? You were behind the leak about the handbag, weren't you?" Hyami's face showed a hint of panic. Sora looked at Hyami with contempt. "You think I don't know anything? Don't frame an innocent person. I'll tell you when I have proof." "What cruelty! You're obviously afraid that your identity will be exposed at any time and you're very uneasy. That's why you came to me in such a hurry." Hyami froze in place after hearing this. Sora continued to mock her. She looked really pitiful. Sora, who had no job, returned to the place where she used to sell handbags. She wanted to reinvestigate the market situation and was greeted by all her former acquaintances. Sora accidentally saw the shop she had rented before and recalled the awkwardness of meeting her lover for the first time. At this time, the stall next door was arguing with a customer because they were selling pirated goods. Sora asked doubtfully if people were often checked. The aunt said helplessly that if someone makes pirated goods, of course someone will check. Sora was very puzzled about this and found her best friend. Her best friend told her that if there is a market, then someone will do it. Sora was puzzled. Would anyone be willing to buy counterfeit goods? Her best friend told her that people who bought fake bags did so to experience a sense of identity. Sora was in deep thought. Did people nowadays blindly pursue famous brands? Her best friend shook her head as she watched the infatuated Sora and immediately changed the subject. Has your boyfriend not contacted you yet? Don't miss him. Sora was too lazy to respond to her best friend and simply left. She went to an internet cafe and began to search for the development history of bags. She wanted to find further inspiration to create better bags. Then she went to the market and talked to the old ladies to learn more about the spending habits of customers. The old ladies told her that handbags must be used by celebrities before they become famous. And even handbags that are not branded can quickly become famous. Another old lady expressed a different opinion. But no one knew that there was a designer in the market. Everyone thought that it was made by Xiao Duo and that's why it's of poor quality. Sora realized that having a good designer is more important than anything else. Mrs. Wu was very angry when she saw the vicious Jinky in front of her. Jinky suddenly saw Mrs. Wu behind her and was shocked. Mrs. Wu was ready to kick her out and pay her the rest of her wages in one lump sum. At this, Jinky panicked and shouted angrily, "Have I done something wrong?" Mrs. Wu's cold stare made her think about her own identity. Jinky walked out of the door with a depressed look on her face and kept complaining about whether Mrs. Wu was crazy. At this time, Mrs. Wu was sitting in Hayami's room. As she looked at the family photos she had taken in the past, she couldn't help but become irritated. She accidentally saw an art album and opened it to find that the content was very familiar. Suddenly she remembered meeting a girl at a painting exhibition and thinking that she looked familiar. Another time, the girl came to visit her house. Mrs. Wu then realized that she had missed her real daughter time and time again, and even spoke harshly to her due to a misunderstanding. Thinking of this, Mrs. Wu couldn't help but let out a cry of pain. At this time, President Min found Hayami's father and asked him what he wanted to say when he suddenly came to see him last time, but was interrupted by Hayami. President Min wanted Jae Hwan to tell the truth himself. Jae Hwan, who was standing nearby, could no longer hold back his tears and fell to his knees. He had been suffering from years of guilt and could no longer hold back. He told the whole truth. President Min was finally certain that the current adopted daughter was not the girl he had wanted to adopt years ago. He was furious at the thought that the daughter he had raised for 17 years was a fake. The kind-hearted President Min did not immediately kick Hayami out of the house. Jae Hwan was very sorry for their family and wanted to find his daughter immediately and bring her home. President Min directly stopped him and asked him not to tell anyone for now. My wife also needs time to prepare. For the time being, let's give both sides some time to ease. Jae Hwan looked at the kind President Min and felt very guilty in his heart. Sehun has lost his good impression of Sora since hearing Hayami's lie last time. He questioned Sora's real purpose for approaching him. Sora looked at Sehun with deep speechlessness. Such a big person but can't think independently. Sehun still felt that he had been deceived, so he went to his brother to vent. Minky asked him puzzled why he didn't believe Sora this time. I haven't even investigated the plagiarism incident before. But you believe her unconditionally. Do you know that Hayami and Sora are cousins? Minky was full of surprise. So you think everything Hayami said was right? Do you really think that Sora only joined the company to take revenge on her? Sehun is still in a daze. He only believes what he hears. Sora took the rights to the faulty design and left. She must have made a deal with my grandfather. The group won't prosecute her, but on the condition that she never sees me again. Sehun at this time felt that Sora was a scheming woman, but the sensible Minky didn't think so. He turned to Sora right away. He asked Sora doubtfully why she didn't tell Sehun the truth and clear up this misunderstanding. Sora pretended to be serious and said, "This is not a misunderstanding. I didn't like Sehun from the beginning. It's just because he said he liked me." But Sora's disguise could not fool the meticulous Minky. Sehun's grandfather also fainted. Now he is very sad. Sora thought it was because of her that Sehun's grandfather fainted. She felt very guilty. The next day, she came to the hospital to visit him, but seeing the bodyguards in the ward, Sora did not dare to go in and just asked at the reception desk about the Chable grandfather's condition. Sehun suddenly asked her from behind why he had come. Sora explained that she was worried about whether your grandfather fainted because of me. Sehun said coldly, "Why would my grandfather faint because of you?" His cold attitude once again hurt Sora's heart. In order to make authentic handbags, Sora found her uncle, a long-established craftsman, and asked him to help her with the design. But Jae Hwan persuaded her to go back home, deliver to the market as usual, and then use the money to open another store. But Sora doesn't want to settle for that. She wants to make a real designer bag and make a name for herself in the market. After saying this, Sora leaves directly. When she goes downstairs, her high heels suddenly fall off. Sora looks at her high heels and recalls the good moments she had with the person she loved. Her heart is suddenly filled with mixed emotions. Mrs. Wu learns that her adopted daughter has been deceiving her for 17 years and vows to make her pay. Her husband comforts the angry Mrs. Wu in time, but Mrs. Wu is full of guilt towards her long-lost real daughter and can't wait to get rid of Hayami now. Sora came to visit me once, but I never imagined that she was my long-lost daughter. I also ran into Sora at the gallery, but I didn't know anything at the time. I even warned Sora to stay away from Hayami, and said many hurtful things to her. Can you imagine how much pain this caused Sora? No matter how I think about it, I feel so sorry for her. She searched for me for 17 years, but I pushed her away several times. President Min looked at his heartbroken wife and hugged her tightly. At that moment, Hayami, who didn't know anything, just arrived at the door and received a call from her real mother. Just as she wondered why her adoptive mother would quit her real mother, she overheard their conversation outside her adoptive mother's door. The thing she was afraid of finally happened. At this moment, Hayami's heart was in a panic. She had enjoyed the life of a rich girl for more than 10 years and was unwilling to give it up. As soon as the Chable grandfather woke up, he was ready to hand over the group to Si-hoon, but President Choi next to him looked reluctant. I have dedicated my life to this company, but he can easily inherit it just because he is your grandson. Grandpa Chable immediately flew into a rage when he heard this, but President Choi continued to provoke him. 30 years ago, I entered the company through the first place in the public recruitment, and the second place was your son. What was the point of me working so hard to make the company a world-class fashion company? Your son is not as good as me in every aspect, but he doesn't need to defeat me to inherit the company. Although I feel sad that your son died in an accident, but it means I will have the opportunity to inherit the group. Grandpa Chable was so angry that he almost died. President Choi's face was full of viciousness. Then the two of them quickly took Grandpa Chable to the ward. President Choi told Minky that you are the only person I have chosen. At this time Si-hoon rushed over and anxiously asked how Grandpa was. President Choi pretended to be a good person and accompanied Si-hoon while waiting for his grandfather to wake up. The simple Si-hoon still doesn't know his true face. President Choi said, I want to see him wake up before I leave. After the two of them visited the Chable grandfather, President Choi hypocritically comforted Si-hoon. At that moment, Si-hoon received a text message from Minky, saying to be careful of President Choi. Si-hoon looked puzzled at the walking President Choi. That day, Mrs. Wu planned to recognize Sora, who had been lost for many years. Sora suddenly heard the voice she had longed for, and couldn't believe it when she turned around. She still couldn't believe that the person in front of her was Auntie Chable. At that moment, she felt as if she were in a dream. The two stumbled forward. After 17 years apart, they had finally met the person they loved most. The mother and daughter embraced, overcome with emotion. Mrs. Wu blamed oneself for not recognizing Sora sooner, and Sora kept calling out adoptive mother in her mouth. After the two calmed down, the adoptive mother reminisced about Sora as a child. Sora's caring personality had not changed. I'm so sorry. Sora's tears could not be stopped as they flowed down her face. The foster mother felt that she had wronged her. Sora hurriedly shook her head. I have never blamed you. I will be very happy if your health can be restored. My heart has always hoped to see you again one day. As long as I can be by your side and look at you properly once, I will be content. The foster mother on the side could not stop sobbing upon hearing Sora's words. Sora asked her foster mother if she remembered the promise they had made. We promised to meet regularly at the seaside whenever we were apart. In the 17 years since your accident and your trip abroad for recuperation, I have never forgotten this promise. Every year, as soon as it was time for our appointment, I would sit by the seaside waiting for you. Hearing this, the adoptive mother felt immense pain. Since I have found you, we will never be apart again. I promise I will never let go of your hand again. We will always be together. Then the two of them strolled together by the seaside where they had once made their promise. After many years, they returned to the place deep in their memories. After you went abroad for recuperation, I went to the villa here to wait for you to return. After waiting for a long time, I took the key hidden under the flower pot and opened the door to go in. We often played hide and seek together. I remember once, I hid up to play naughty, but I fell asleep accidentally and scared myself. I kept waiting for you like this until I grew up. Every year, I hoped that you would come back. I also wrote you many messages in the villa. Did you see them? My adoptive mother said with a sad heart. I saw them all. Sora looked happy and told her adoptive mother about her yearning for her over the years. Suddenly, her foster mother asked Sora, do you remember what kind of tree we planted before? Sora said proudly, of course I remember. That day, We were going to plant a tree, but it rained heavily and we couldn't go out. So you drew me a picture of planting a tree. We each planted a tree. Mrs. Wu was even more certain that the girl in front of her was her real adopted daughter. Sara told her foster mother that she recognized her the first time she saw her. Mrs. Wu felt even more remorseful. You recognized me after 17 years, but I recognized you every time we met. Sora's face was full of smiles. How could I recognize the face I saw when I was little at a glance? Besides, haven't you recognized me now? Sora looked at her adoptive mother, who was in tears, and reached out to help her wipe away her tears. The two people who had reunited after a long separation confided in each other by the sea. Hayami pretended to be stupid in order to continue living the life of a rich girl and please her chaebol parents. But Mrs. Wu thought of Hayami's plot against Sora and felt extreme disgust. Hayami, however, deliberately brought up the happy memories the family once had, and her adoptive parents instantly looked displeased. Hayami pretended not to see and continued to ingratiate herself with her adoptive mother. Mrs. Wu looked at Hayami with cold eyes and angrily left the dinner table immediately. Hayami hurriedly pretended to be concerned and said, "Maybe mommy's not in the mood today. Daddy, why don't you go in and take a look?" Mrs. Wu in the room was very angry. Hayami had concealed her identity and bullied Sora for 17 years. Now that the truth had been revealed, she still had the nerve to stay here. Her husband also looks full of hatred. It seems that she knows everything now, so she is trying to curry favor with us. At this moment, Hayami vows that she will never let Sora live a good life. Sehun is terrified when he learns that his company is about to be taken over by President Choi. He is so naive that he thinks that as long as he is kind, no one will stop him from inheriting the company. President Choi has a good relationship with my father. How can he be so heartless to me just for money? Sehun can't help but cry out in his heart. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. He immediately rushed over to settle scores with President Choi. Minky stopped him and urged him to calm down. Sehun couldn't understand how an ordinarily gentle senior could be so ruthless in the face of the temptation of money. The next day, President Choi wanted to see if the chaebol grandfather had passed away, but he was stopped by the bodyguards. Just as he was puzzled, Sehun walked over. "I told them that no one could go in, and I especially said that you could not go in." President Choi was furious that someone had leaked the secret. Minky on the other side immediately found Sehun to discuss a countermeasure. President Choi had been preparing to take control of this group for 30 years. "With your current strength, no one will support you to inherit the company," Minky continued, saying that you have to find a way to win over the other company elders. Sehun said doubtfully, "How can I win them over? Once they know I've also lost my memory, no one will support me." Minky suddenly thought of Hayami, who still had shares. Sehun was told to try her. Sehun immediately went to Hayami to ask for her help. Hayami, however, told him to propose to her. Sehun looked at Hayami with a puzzled expression. Hayami then said, "I'm not really asking you to propose to me. I just want to sign a superficial contract marriage with you. We'll just pretend to be engaged. I know you're worried about the shares right now, but once the news of our engagement gets out, all the company's senior members will side with you." But Sehun is very confused as to why Hayami, who is in a high position, would do this. What he doesn't know is that Hayami's current identity and status have been stolen. In the end, Sehun refused Hayami's ridiculous idea. Hayami relentlessly pursued and forced Sehun to marry her. Sehun mocked her for being completely delusional. Hayami gave a cold laugh. "You're in trouble yourself right now. Sooner or later, you'll come begging me." Before long, Jaehwan came looking for his daughter and urged her to leave the chaebol family. Hayami said, "I can't just leave on my own before they kick me out. Why should I give up my identity as a rich girl after more than 10 years? Hayami continued, "I've worked hard to hide my identity for 17 years, and as long as my current parents don't kick me out of the house, I'll just keep acting like nothing happened." On the other side, Sara gathered the designers from the market together to spread knowledge about designing handbags. She shared with the designers all her experience in making handbags over the years and how to design better. Sara hoped that they could boost their confidence and create their own brands together with her. The designers all expressed their approval of Sara. Sara encouraged everyone that soon this brand would lead the trend in the country. She continued to run to other markets to research and carefully record the merits of others' designs, observing the shortcomings of her own designs in comparison. When she saw the familiar omelette rice, she suddenly thought of the good memories with her first love Sehun. When she was sick, only he cared about her and cooked her omelette rice. Sora recalled the experiences of the past 10 years. She was bullied while boarding at her uncle's house. She was framed by Hayami at the company for 17 years. She had never felt a moment of warmth, but now Sehun also listened to Hayami's words and misunderstood her. Sora's grievances could no longer be suppressed and she burst into tears. Sehun's grandfather was still in a coma at this time. Sehun saw his grandfather's body deteriorating day by day, and his reluctance to let go grew stronger. He prayed over and over again in his heart for his grandfather to get better soon. Sehun was still worried about the ownership of the company. It happened that he ran into President Choi around the corner. President Choi took the opportunity to ask about the health of the Chaeble's grandfather and also scolded Sehun for not letting anyone else into the ward. Sehun lied that his grandfather's condition was improving and that he would soon be able to return to the company. President Choi mockingly said, "It's good that your grandfather is awake. Otherwise, if another shareholders' meeting is held, you will have to leave the company." Hayami knew that her identity had been revealed and sought help from Minky. However, Minky directly rejected her and told her that she had been abandoned by the Chaebol. Hayami instantly broke down after hearing this. In this way, she would lose her status as a rich girl. She began to blame Minky, saying, "You don't even have the ability to maintain your position." Minky said impatiently, "In your eyes, money is always the first priority." Unexpectedly, Hayami continued to blame him. "Back when we were dating, a top Chaebol group wanted to recruit you, but you refused their offer without considering my feelings, which resulted in you having to work for someone else now." Minky was about to explain, but Hayami interrupted him directly. "Although President Choi cultivated you into the person you are, it is precisely because you have no dreams and no ambition that you are reduced to having your fate controlled by others." Minky looked at the extremely ambitious Hayami and said, "You know very well why you fell in love with me. After spending time together, I realized that you are so calculating." Hayami was shocked when her ulterior motives were revealed. Minky took her resignation and went directly to President Choi, saying that she would never forget his kindness. President Choi, however, looked calm. "I adopted you in the hope of training a successor, and I have only invested in you. You don't need to feel indebted to me. I'll just consider you a failure of my investment." Minky was still full of gratitude. No matter how ambitious President Choi had become in front of her, Minky felt indebted to him for his kindness over the years. "Although you have become different from before, I will continue to live as you taught me," President Choi said angrily. "Nothing will remain unchanged. If I had not changed at all in these 30 years, I would have already become someone else's stepping stone. You are betraying me and leaving now, but you must remember your choice. You will definitely regret this in the future." Minky turned away with a look of obedience. Just as President Choi had turned around to leave, he inadvertently saw an old acquaintance of his. He hurriedly told his subordinate to investigate who the person was who had come to see him. His subordinate told President Choi that the person had come to see Hayami several times. President Choi learned the whole story from his subordinate and thought that Hayami was his daughter. That day, Hayami accidentally discovered that Sora's biological father was President Choi. As soon as she thought about Sora not knowing about this, she immediately found President Choi. President Choi tentatively asked, "Is your mother's name Zeon?" Then he took out a booklet and told Hayami, "This is a craft manual made by your deceased grandfather. Your uncle thought I stole it, but in fact, your mother gave it to me." Just as Hayami didn't know what to do, President Choi asked again, "Do you know anything about your father?" Hayami directly went to her biological parents and asked them suspiciously, "Who is President Choi?" Jinky said, "Isn't he the one who abandoned Zeon?" Her father asked Hayami why she wanted to know this. Hayami hesitated for a moment and hurriedly explained, "I just heard that he was my father's friend, so I just asked casually." Jaehwan angrily said, "Who is his friend? Just remember that he is the enemy of our family." Hayami knew that President Choi must have mistaken her for Sora. A malicious plot sprouted in her heart. President Choi accidentally met Jaehwan on the street. Jaehwan was surprised to see him. President Choi said with confusion, "Do you really think I stole the design book? If you have evidence, why don't you call the police and arrest me?" Jaehwan looked at President Choi with anger. "My father's leather manual, which had just been designed, suddenly disappeared, and your company produced it right after that. You took this opportunity to become the person in charge of the company. The evidence is conclusive. Do you still want to lie?" But President Choi continued to explain. Jaehwan interrupted him directly. "Because of this incident, my father passed away. And my younger sister also passed away due to illness. But you did such a heartless thing. Doesn't your conscience hurt?" President Choi was shocked to hear about the death of his first love. Jaehwan angrily said with a face full of anger, "How can you live with yourself? You stole the design book. Even so, why did you abandon my sister?" President Choi, overcome with grief, went to the beach and blamed himself for not fulfilling his promise with his first love. If only he had acted more forcefully, perhaps nothing would have happened. Now that he has found his biological daughter, he must make amends to her. Jinky immediately went to Mrs. Wu's house to beg for forgiveness. Mrs. Wu felt disgusted at the thought of Sora having been abused by her for 17 years. Jinky saw this and immediately knelt on the ground. Hayami saw this and felt ashamed, so she hurriedly told her mother to get up. But Jinky said, "Don't mind me. I'll keep kneeling until she forgives me." Hayami mocked, "Do you think you'll be forgiven like this?" Jinky said, "You're blaming me for all your mistakes. This is the only way to keep your current status as a rich girl." Hayami couldn't bear to see her mother like this, so she kept pulling her up. She felt a headache coming on as soon as she thought about the truth being revealed. In the room, Mrs. Wu remembered when she helped her with her massage. Hayami felt happy to be able to help her. It turned out that Hayami was doing all this to please herself. Just as Mrs. Wu was reminiscing, her husband came down and asked her why she wasn't resting. Mrs. Wu said that she could never forget the filial Hayami. "She did everything perfectly in order to please us. I thought we weren't her real parents, so she felt a bit awkward and uncomfortable. I never dreamed that she would deceive us for 17 years in order to hide her identity. Are you going to keep her like this without ever telling her the truth?" "I've thought about it." As soon as Hayami agrees, "We'll send her abroad to work for the company. We feel so bad whenever we see her now. We've raised her for 17 years. And now we can't just kick her out." At that moment, Hayami knocked on the door and came back in. Her foster mother hurriedly got up and asked her concernedly if she'd been drinking. But Hayami staggered drunkenly upstairs. Her foster parents were filled with worry. Hayami collapsed on the bed when she got back to her room. President Choi, on the other hand, learned that Hayami might be his daughter and called her to ask for clarification. Unexpectedly, his wife paid him a surprise visit. President Choi was taken aback. Tae-yeon jokingly said, "Are you hiding some money? You're so surprised to see me suddenly come over." President Choi stammered and asked her, "Is it true that Hayami is not Mrs. Wu's biological daughter?" Tae-yeon sighed and said, "Every time I talk to you, you just mumble. I've told you several times that the child in Mrs. Wu's family is indeed adopted." President Choi hurriedly asked when it was. Tae-yeon thought for a moment and said it was 17 years ago, after Mrs. Wu had an accident. President Choi was about to continue asking when Hayami happened to come over. Tae-yeon saw this and suggested they go out for dinner together. Her plan satisfied the two people who were both preoccupied with their own thoughts. That day, Mrs. Wu asked Sora out to a Western restaurant. Sora once again felt the warmth of being taken care of. She was happy like a little child. Just then, Hayami suddenly arrived. Her appearance made the atmosphere instantly awkward. Hayami was shocked to see her foster mother eating with Sora. She immediately went to the bathroom to take a pill to calm herself down. At that moment, Sora also came to the bathroom. Hayami glared at Sora resentfully. "You deliberately pretended to be close to my foster mother, didn't you? Does this make you feel good?" Sora said disdainfully, "You always look annoyed whenever you see me. Although I don't feel as good as you say, I am really happy with my foster mother. I hope you won't ruin my good mood now." Hayami looked at the stubborn Sora but was unable to do anything. However, Sora did not know that the man beside her was her biological father. President Choi, on the other hand, mistook Hayami for his biological daughter. President Choi was concerned about Hayami's past. His wife went to question him on why he was so concerned about Hayami. Tae-young had never met Sora before and was curious. Hayami hurriedly explained that she was just a part-time employee. Tae-young then turned to ask Mrs. Wu why she knew Sora. Mrs. Wu was embarrassed when she thought about the fake adoption. Sora quickly explained that she and Hayami were high school classmates. Mrs. Wu didn't want to spend any more time with the scheming fake daughter and left directly. This made Hayami so angry that she trembled all over. Sora restarted her career as a designer. Jae-hwan felt guilty when he thought about Sora being abused by his wife for 17 years and being framed by his daughter. He came over to help Sora make handbags. Minky hurried over after hearing the news to celebrate Sora's grand opening. Sora was puzzled by Minky's arrival. Minky told her that he had quit his job for other reasons. He also told Sora that he was going to work for her company. That day, Sora brought good news back to the company. The top domestic handbag store was looking for a resident brand. Although it was a temporary store recruitment, we must seize this opportunity. Just as everyone was happy about this opportunity, Minky received news that the chaebol was dying. Sehun was with his grandfather on the other side. He couldn't stop the tears as he watched his grandfather's health deteriorate. Suddenly, his grandfather's blood pressure kept fluctuating. Sehun hurriedly called the doctor. During the examination, his grandfather stopped breathing. Despite the doctor's efforts, his grandfather passed away. Sora, who was waiting for news, learned of the death of the Chable grandfather and was extremely sad. Sehun was sent home by Minky after taking care of his grandfather's affairs. Sehun suddenly noticed something and looked back. Minky asked him in surprise what was wrong. Sehun then looked back again, but still didn't see anything. Sora knew that President Choi was Sehun's only relative. She knew how sad it was to lose a loved one, but she didn't have the courage to go up to Sehun and comfort him. Sehun felt very sad when he saw the photo of his deceased grandfather. He put on his clothes and prepared to leave this sad place first. He thought about the first time he met his grandfather after returning to the country. The first time his grandfather was angry with him. Sehun couldn't help but shed tears, sitting alone by the river, thinking about how he had treated President Choi like a father. But as soon as his grandfather passed away, he was planning to hold a board meeting to take over the company that his grandfather had left to him. Sehun vowed that he would not let President Choi get away with it so easily. But President Choi, who was in a high position of power, was not someone that Sehun could shake. Fortunately, there were still a few shareholders who were willing to support him. Sehun was determined to protect the group that his grandfather had built with blood and sweat. The board meeting was held as scheduled. President Choi even hypocritically helped Sehun fix his clothes. During the official election, most shareholders chose to support President Choi. The shareholders who had originally firmly supported Sehun also defected one after the other under President Choi's threatening gaze. In the end, President Choi was unanimously elected as the new chairman. Sehun was so angry that he left the election scene directly. On the way, he met another major shareholder, Hayami. He angrily asked Hayami if the engagement agreement she had mentioned before was still valid. Hayami looked at Sehun, whose attitude had changed drastically, and was very confused. But angry Sehun only wants revenge at this moment. I will only make decisions without considering. I now beg you to help me. And President Choi, who has just become the new chairman, is delivering a speech, feeling incredibly happy that he has finally taken control of the Chable Group. Hayami once again approached Sehun and asked him, "Are you really confident that you will not regret signing the agreement?" Sehun, however, said flatly, "Just arrange the engagement time for me." Hayami proposed that after the engagement is arranged, they should find an opportunity to dissolve the engagement. Sora is having a meeting with her colleagues. The press conference for Myri Group and her company is on the same day. By then, the industry insiders will all go to Myri Group, and no one will pay attention to our company's press conference. Sora worries that if the date is changed and the press conference is held again, the industry insiders will think something is wrong with us. Minky suggests releasing a product before the press conference and handing it over to the platform Big Shots to let them write reviews. Sora agrees with this method. Just as she is about to connect with the person in charge of the factory, she sees on the news that President Choi has been unanimously elected as the new chairman. Sehun, on the other hand, reminisced about the good times he had with Sora. He felt heartbroken at the thought of being separated from the innocent and lively Sora, so he got drunk alone to release his emotions. At this time, Hayami directly knelt in front of the Chable's adoptive mother and put on a pitiful appearance. "I'm not begging you to forgive me, but my love for you is real." Mrs. Wu couldn't help but feel indignant at the thought of all the grievances Sora had endured over the years. Hayami saw this and pretended to blame herself. She even put the blame on her slum mother. Mrs. Wu said with tears in her eyes, "We have loved you like our own daughter, but you have deceived us for 17 years. This feeling makes my heart feel like it is being cut up. I wish I could kick you out of the house right now." At this point, her adoptive father couldn't help but scold Hayami. "Don't you feel uneasy about deceiving us? The truth has been discovered by us, but you have been living in our house all this time." Hayami had already found a way out for herself. She said she was engaged to Sehun. The adoptive father was surprised. "The son of a Chable from Future Group?" Hayami said pretentiously that she should have asked for your permission, but she had a good reason for not doing so. The adoptive father did not understand how Hayami had met Sehun. Hayami said she had been dating Sehun for a while. The Chable adoptive parents did not know Hayami's intentions. Out of old friendship, they could only agree to Hayami staying in the family for now. Hayami immediately invited the reporters to publicize the engagement. The photographer asked them to act more intimate. Sehun felt disgusted with this fake show. Unavoidably, the reporters came forward to communicate with them. The outside world already suspected that their daughter's engagement was fake. If they did not cooperate, it would be confirmed that you were getting married for power. After hearing this, Sehun reluctantly hugged Hayami. Next, the reporters asked questions according to the prearranged plan. Hayami calmly responded to all the questions. She knew that she could only continue to be a rich girl if she seized this opportunity. Sehun reluctantly sat on the side. At that time, the reporter asked who proposed first. Sehun preemptively said that it was oneself. On the other side, President Choi learned that Sehun wanted to take back the company and laughed at him for being naive. Then he told his subordinates to immediately convene an extraordinary shareholders meeting to expel Sehun from the company. President Choi warned Hyami not to be stubborn. Hyami immediately ran to Sora to brag that she and Sehun were engaged. Sora immediately wanted to teach the scheming woman a lesson. She couldn't believe that a man who deeply loved her could do such a thing. Hyami looked at the departing Sora and revealed a sneer. Sehun had just returned home when he saw Sora at his door. He asked Sora doubtfully what she was doing there. Sora angrily asked him if he had engaged Hyami to get back at her. Sehun, however, mockingly said, "Who do you think you are? Why should I get engaged just because of you?" Sora anxiously said, "Hyami doesn't love you at all. I know you don't love her either. You must not be fooled by Hyami." Sehun pretended to be indifferent. "Aren't you also dating me because I am useful?" Sora felt sad when she saw that she was misunderstood. However, she did not know that Sehun was deliberately pretending to be heartless in order to protect his grandfather's business. Sora couldn't believe that the person who once loved her so much could become like this. She asked Sehun what he wanted to do. Not giving up. Sehun pretended to be calm and said, "I'm busy getting along with Hyami." After hearing this, Sora's heart completely panicked. Even though they clearly loved each other, they were saying hurtful things to each other. Sora couldn't help but feel heartache and left directly. Sehun could no longer pretend, and tears couldn't be held back. He regretted in his heart for being so heartless to the one he loved. Sora was distraught as she walked down the street, thinking about the gap between her and Sehun's chaebol status. She thought that if she worked hard enough, she could get close to Sehun, but now she has nothing. On the other side of the street, Hyami had just returned home. Her mother thought she had been kicked out of the chaebol family and hurriedly asked about it. Hyami happily said that she was getting engaged. Jinky was very puzzled and asked who she had been dating recently. Hyami said it was the son of the chaebol from Myri group. Jaewon's face changed drastically and he asked, "Aren't you dating Sora?" Jinky also thought of something at this time. Jaehwan asked his daughter when they started dating, "Don't you dare interfere in their relationship." Hyami hurriedly explained that Sehun had nothing to do with Sora, but when she married Sehun, she didn't want to see her biological parents at the wedding. Jinky yelled at her daughter, "Why don't you let your parents go when you get married?" Hyami coldly said, "Why are you meddling? My chaebol foster parents will be attending." The parents felt uncomfortable, but they could only acquiesce. Then Hyami held a press conference to flaunt her new status, but she didn't know that Mrs. Wu was now living with Sora. Mrs. Wu felt ashamed towards Sora and wanted her to move to the mansion to live, but Sora felt that the place she was living in was more convenient. Mrs. Wu knew that what she minded was that Hyami was still in the family. The kind-hearted Sora comforts her foster mother, "You don't have to do anything difficult just because you care about me. I care about you. You can continue living with Hyami." Mrs. Wu feels heartbroken as she looks at the sensible Sora, but she is unable to do anything about it herself. Sora is sad to learn that the person who loves her dearly is going to marry Hyami, but she dares not stop it. She believes that her poor status is not worthy of the chaebol's son. The next day, Sora was listless during work. Her colleagues were concerned about her and asked her how she was feeling. Sora gave a perfunctory reply. Her best friend accidentally found out about Hyami's engagement news. She immediately realized that it was a fake engagement. She hurried to Sora's company and wanted Sora to quickly expose the truth about the fake engagement. But the sad Sora had already left. Minky had always had some feelings for Sora. He immediately questioned Sehun why he had betrayed Sora, but when he saw Sehun's indifferent attitude, he angrily pushed him against the wall. "You once said you loved Sora very much and asked me to give up." Sehun said nonchalantly that I don't love her anymore. Minky was so angry that he punched him directly to the ground, but he had no idea that Sehun also had his own difficulties. On the other side, Yango found Hyami and complained, "What you instructed me to do before has now been discovered, but you are indifferent to me." Hyami laughed dismissively. "A little cobbler like you dares to come to me. Before you get caught, watch your mouth." Yango just wanted to say something, but was pulled away by his assistant. This scene happened to be seen by Sehun. Sehun remembered that this man was the one who falsely accused Sora before. He immediately asked Hyami what was going on. Hyami said hurriedly that his company had run into problems. The security guard didn't stop him and ran to me. Sehun asked in puzzlement why you would be called. Hyami pretended to be calm. "Don't worry about it. I've already taken care of it." Sehun's doubts grew. Hyami suddenly learned that her adoptive mother had fainted and rushed home. She anxiously asked how her adoptive mother was doing. Just as Hyami was about to go to her room to check on her adoptive mother, she ran into Sora carrying hot water coming out of the room, and Mrs. Wu was affectionately calling Sora's name. At this moment, Hyami was so scared that she panicked. In the room, Sora carefully massaged Mrs. Wu. Mrs. Wu helped her gently arrange her hair. At this moment, Hayami entered with the hot water and saw this scene, which made her feel very uncomfortable. She immediately told Sora to hurry back, but her foster mother told Hayami to go back to her room and sleep, not to stay here. Hayami felt that she was being alienated and just wanted to leave, but what her foster mother said next made her heart fall. Mrs. Wu told Sora to stay here with her. Hayami, who had returned to her room, thought about setting her up but didn't kick Sora out. She could no longer hold back her tears. Mrs. Wu, after sending her husband to sleep in the guest room, tightly gripped Sora's hand. Mrs. Wu's memory had never fully returned after the accident. Sora then talked about the scenes from their previous meetings. Her adoptive mother enjoyed this happy moment. Hayami, who was uneasy, carefully went downstairs. She wanted to see if Sora had left. When she opened the door, she was shocked. She saw her adoptive mother asleep, still holding Sora's hand tightly. Hayami's heart was filled with jealousy. She had never been this close to her adoptive mother. The next morning, at breakfast, Mrs. Wu saw that Sora was a little down. She asked her if there was something she didn't like and wanted to eat. "I'll cook it for you." Mrs. Wu also told her husband to take Sora to work safely. Since arriving at the house, Hayami had never received such treatment. At this time, Minky greeted Sora. The two of them even went to work together. Hayami watched as her wealthy adoptive mother was taken away from her by Sora. Now even her first love was close to her. Her hatred for Sora grew even stronger. Back at the office, she began contacting her subordinates to plot a series of schemes against Sora. As soon as Sora arrived at the company, she heard her colleagues say that the design factory did not want to continue working together. Sora was so scared that she immediately picked up the phone to try to persuade them to continue, but the other party hung up the phone directly. Sora rushed out directly. Minky saw this and hurriedly chased after her. The two of them looked for the design factory in a daze. "If there is no product for this conference, our company will become the laughingstock of the industry." So the two split up to find a manufacturer. But after searching all afternoon, they still couldn't find one. At that moment, Sora received a call from her uncle, Jae-hwan, who told her that there was a manufacturer that could do it. Sora was overjoyed and immediately told Minky the news. Si-hoon, who liked Sora from afar, was envious when he saw the two of them getting close, but he didn't dare to interrupt. As soon as President Choi took office, he had his subordinates buy up shares and then fire the company's veteran employees. But the company veterans couldn't believe that they were being abandoned after betraying the old president. President Choi, however, mocked the company veteran, saying that he should go home and enjoy his retirement since he was already old. The company veteran could not bear to just leave the group that he had served for decades and wanted to fight for it some more. As a result, President Choi directly ordered someone to escort him out. The company veteran vented his anger and went to Si-hoon to complain. "Your grandfather left some shares behind." Si-hoon felt a little surprised. After learning the truth, Si-hoon immediately rushed to the office and pulled Sora away. Minky didn't want to see Sora get hurt by Si-hoon and stopped him. Si-hoon angrily pulled Sora off the car and questioned her why she had to bear the pressure alone without telling the truth. Sora could no longer hold back her grievances. Si-hoon blamed oneself for breaking Sora's heart. He was determined not to be separated from Sora again. Si-hoon was determined to cancel the fake engagement. However, the news of the engagement had already become known to everyone. Sora was worried that if Si-hoon revealed the fake engagement at this time, Si-hoon would be blamed and even fail to keep the future group left by his grandfather. Si-hoon, however, has decided to stand up and atone for the mistakes he has made. Hayami is looking forward to a good life with Si-hoon in the future, but the next second Si-hoon is going to cancel the engagement with her. Facing Hayami's desperate plea, Si-hoon does not hesitate for a moment. Hayami sees this and threatens Si-hoon, "If you cancel the engagement, I will expose everything you have done to take over the company using my shares." Si-hoon knows that the company is very important to him, but he cannot do anything to betray his lover, so he firmly refused Hayami. Hayami thought about how her position as a rich girl would be threatened and her heart grew evil again. On the other side, Mrs. Wu took out an adoption contract and was preparing to get Sora to sign it. Seeing that Sora had grown up, her adoptive mother wanted to be her biological mother at her wedding and help her raise her children in the future. As an orphan, Sora was very touched. Hayami came back and saw Sora there, so she made an excuse to leave, but she accidentally saw the adoption contract in Sora's hand. Hayami accused Sora of being too calculating. "Not only can Si-hoon be devoted to you, but you can also take away the love my adoptive mother has for me." Sora didn't expect Hayami to be so shameless. Hayami pretended to be pitiful at this time and begged Sora to help her. Sora directly refused her request. That day, Sora put on a red dress and Sehun simply couldn't take his eyes off her. He just kept praising Sora. Hayami knew that Sora was going to hold a press conference, so she immediately came up with a malicious plan. Even when she went to the factory to inspect the employees making the bags, she didn't forget to conspire with her subordinates. The unsuspecting Sora was busy preparing for the press conference. The kind-hearted girl even prepared drinks for the employees. After the bag design was completed, it was time to decorate the press conference venue. Hayami was doing her best to set up the exhibition hall. She knew that Sora's press conference was on the same day as hers, so she invited the top chaebol in society. Hayami couldn't help but laugh when she thought about Sora's press conference becoming a laughingstock. Sora was also methodically arranging the venue and discussing the placement of the handbags with her colleagues. Since the two of them had revealed their relationship, Minky had become increasingly uncomfortable staying here. He was preparing to go abroad to develop. Sora was just about to try to persuade him to stay when she received a call to withdraw the venue. She immediately panicked and went to the person in charge of the venue to inquire about the situation. However, the person in charge just kept apologizing. She asked the person in charge for the contact information of the person who rented the venue, but the person in charge had already received a bribe. At this time, Sora's heart was ashen. She also looked listless at work, and was forced to let her colleagues inform the guests and tell them that the press conference had been postponed. At this time, Sehun arrived in time to tell her that she had already rented the venue. Everyone's low mood instantly disappeared, but just as Sora was happy, she received a phone call. A former colleague told Sora that it was all done by Hayami. Sora immediately had a new idea in her mind. She immediately asked a colleague to inform the models participating in the press conference to go directly to Hayami's press conference venue. Sora wanted to show Hayami with facts that scheming and trickery could never defeat real talent. The press conference of the future group was proceeding smoothly. Just as Hayami thought it was over, the media at the venue ran out. Immediately afterwards, a group of celebrities followed to watch the fun. Hayami's face changed as soon as she left the door. She saw a unique and stylish press conference. Sora was directing attentively from the side. The reporters were attracted by the novel bags and took pictures with their cameras. The partner thought the bag design was unique and asked Hayami who the designer was. Hayami, however, saw Sora in the crowd and felt extremely angry in her heart. She wanted to ask the uncle to help fake the company's sales to deal with the news spread online. President Choi knew what the consequences would be if this was exposed, but he couldn't resist the fake daughter's desperate pleas. Hayami hurriedly instructed her subordinates to forge the shipping documents and then bribed the driver to take the goods to be destroyed. She instructed her subordinate to make sure that the bags were destroyed in front of her eyes. She must not let this batch of goods appear on the market. Just as everything was going according to plan, the driver, who was lazy and didn't personally supervise the destruction process, had a bad idea and unloaded the bags. When he took out a match to set them on fire, he felt bad about destroying the new bags, so he decided to secretly sell them. Hayami thought that everything had ended well. Suddenly, her subordinate rushed in, anxiously, to tell her that there was a problem with the fake sales. The subordinate immediately sent someone to the mall to buy back the genuine bags at a high price. However, due to the lack of manpower, many bags still circulated on the market. Hayami was furious when she found out, but the subordinate was just a runner. Hayami angrily kicked her out and anxiously tried to find a solution. She wanted to quickly find someone to take the blame, so she immediately called the person in charge of this matter, Sehun. He also received the news that the bags had circulated on the market. Someone also told him that the so-called sample bags on the market were actually all genuine. He immediately called the group lawyer to call a shareholders meeting to remove the new president. On the other side, President Choi couldn't help but laugh at Sehun when he learned that he wanted to call an extraordinary shareholders meeting. At this time, Hayami walked in. First, she pretended to be pitiful, and then told him that the fake sales had been exposed. President Choi thought that Sehun was using this incident to remove himself from office and laughed at him for underestimating himself. He immediately comforted Hayami and told her not to worry about this matter. Since you are my daughter, I will not let anything happen to you. At this time, Sehun received another anonymous letter. Upon opening it, he discovered data on the new president's false accounting. He knew that his chance to turn things around had arrived. Sehun hurriedly arranged a meeting with the group's lawyer. The lawyer was shocked when he saw the evidence and hurriedly asked Sehun how he obtained it. But Sehun also had no idea who had sent it. However, as long as they had this evidence, they could definitely remove the new president from office. The two of them started calculating the false sales amount overnight and subsequently compiled a document. Sehun, who had always been timid, was ready to confront the new president face-to-face with the evidence. President Choi, however, mocked him for his lack of self-awareness. After teaching you for so many years, You are still so reckless. The shareholders' meeting officially began. President Choi took the seat of honor, as he felt he deserved it. But this meeting was initiated against him. He could only reluctantly leave his seat. Si-hoon directly stated the amount of money President Choi had embezzled while in office and that he had been secretly accepting bribes. The shareholders below were in an uproar after hearing this. Si-hoon then proposed to remove the new president. But when the shareholders saw the evidence Si-hoon had prepared, they were shocked. President Choi calmly said that he took bribes only to save the company. Otherwise, such a large company would have long since ceased to exist. Si-hoon then produced new evidence and dealt President Choi a fatal blow. He directly produced a new bag designed by the company. The genuine bag was even sold at a low price in department stores. President Choi even collaborated with another major shareholder, Hayami, to falsify sales. They used company funds to purchase products and commit fraud, but they didn't expect it to be exposed. Si-hoon called Sora, the head of the subsidiary, in order to increase the persuasiveness of his evidence. Sora said that he had worked for Myri Group and designed products that were framed. For some reason, the grandfather of the chaebol asked me to open a subsidiary in the name of the company. Now I have signed a contract with the top domestic shopping mall to move in. It will be exported all over the world next month. Currently, Si-hoon is in control of the subsidiary. At this time, Si-hoon's ability has replaced the new chairman. Hayami has just impersonated Sora's identity and recognized her chaebol father. She is still praying that the other party can help her take the blame. A decision is being made in the meeting room to remove President Choi. I saw all the shareholders raise their hands. In this way, President Choi was removed from office. Si-hoon successfully regained the group left by her grandfather. On the other side, Hayami learned that the plan had failed and she would be subject to legal prosecution by the company. Her heart broke and she collapsed to the ground. At this moment, President Choi was filled with hatred and immediately wanted to discuss a countermeasure with Hayami. However, Hayami had already been taken to the hospital. President Choi had not yet discovered that this daughter was a fake, and hurried to the hospital. At this time, Hayami's chaebol adoptive mother also rushed over. They were very surprised to see President Choi. Just then, Hayami's biological parents also arrived at the scene. Jinki hurriedly asked about her daughter's condition. The adoptive father said that Hayami had a sudden angina. Jinki immediately blamed the adoptive parents for abusing their daughter. Jae-hwan was afraid of revealing the truth and quickly told his wife to shut up. President Choi immediately sensed something was wrong and, with doubts, went to find Jae-hwan. He then learned that Hayami was not his daughter. However, Jae-hwan did not know that the man in front of him was Sora's biological father. At this time, Sora rushed over and anxiously asked about Hayami's condition. President Choi hurriedly asked what the girl's identity was. Just then, Hayami was wheeled out of the resuscitation room. Jae-hwan and Sora hurried to visit. At this time, President Choi already knew in his heart that Sora was the daughter born to his late wife. Jinki felt disgusted when she saw Mrs. Wu. She thought that her daughter had become pitiful because they had bullied her. Jinki also warned them to stay away from their daughter in the future. The chaebol foster parents were thus driven out. Sora was also directly driven away by her. Jae-hwan felt a sense of guilt in his heart when he saw this. On the other side, President Choi never dreamed in his dreams that Sora was his biological daughter. He remembered the scene when he met Sora, the first time Sora designed a bag. She was framed. She asked him to investigate the facts, but he didn't care at all. President Choi felt extremely self-blame when he thought about everything in the past. At this time, he took out a photo of his late ex-wife and recalled the promise they made in front of the luxury store. President Choi once promised to enter the Mirai Group and wrote his dream on the glass window. Just as the two were about to fight for their dreams, the security guards saw them. President Choi immediately grabbed his wife's hand and fled. As he recalled the happy memories with his ex-wife, he couldn't help but feel sad. President Choi deeply regretted not recognizing his biological daughter earlier. On the other side of the street, Sora was puzzled by what her uncle had said, but she never imagined that the man was her own father. Si-hoon saw how listless she was. Sora curiously asked him what the company would do to President Choi and Hayami. Si-hoon said flatly that they would be sued by the company. Sora, out of kindness, asked Si-hoon to go easy on them. President Choi couldn't wait to meet his daughter. He asked Sora if she knew the origin of her name. At this, President Choi's doubts were resolved. Your name was named after one character from each of your mother and my name. Sora was shocked to hear this. President Choi blamed himself for not recognizing his daughter earlier. Sora recalled that when she was 8 years old, it was also the day her mother died. Her mother had once gone to the Mirai Group to meet someone, but after seeing her mother, The man pretended not to know her, and the man she saw that day was actually right in front of her. Sarah wanted to find out why he had abandoned his wife and daughter, and President Choi had also seen them at that time, but only now did she realize that it was his ex-wife and that was the last time she saw her. Sarah then followed up by asking why you abandoned me and my mother so heartlessly. President Choi explained that it was your mother who abandoned me first. Sarah remembered that she had never met her father since she was young, and her mother had been seriously ill, but Zaeun had to sing in bars to support the family. Zaeun suddenly fainted while singing. Sarah was crying next to her, trying to wake her mother. Since the family had no money, she could only take her mother home. Zaeun woke up and saw Sora lying on the ground. She knew it was because of her old illness and hurriedly woke Sora. Sarah asked her mother to go to the hospital for a checkup. She had heard from the boss that if her mother did not have an operation, she might die of her illness, but the family could not afford to let her mother have the operation, and her mother did not want to leave her young Sora to fend for herself. She could only comfort Sora by telling her that after taking the medicine, her health would return to normal, but Sora did not want to see her mother fall ill again. She cried out to her mother, telling her to hurry to the hospital for treatment. Zaeun could only hold her daughter tightly. She knew that her body was failing her, so she made up her mind to take Sora to meet her father. But when Zaeun saw her husband, she shrank back and didn't dare to recognize him. Sora had lived with her mother for 8 years and had wanted to ask about her father countless times, but she was afraid of breaking her mother's heart, so she had never asked about her father. She had wanted to wait until her mother could tell her about her father without worry. President Choi couldn't hold back his grief when he thought about his daughter living a lonely life all these years. Sarah told her lover Sihoon the truth that the new president was her father. Sihoon was shocked to hear this and blamed himself for being disrespectful to his future father-in-law. He regretted his move to remove the chairman from office. He hated himself for always doing things that hurt his lover. Sarah comforted him, saying, "You did it for the company, not because of any personal grudges. I won't blame you." But Sihoon felt extremely guilty when he thought about breaking the heart of a father and daughter who had not seen each other for 30 years. Hayami looked at her sleeping mother and pulled out the needle from her arm before running out. At this time, Jinky woke up from a dream in which she was scared that her daughter was going to do something stupid. Just as she thought it was only a dream, she turned around and realized that her daughter was really gone. She immediately panicked and anxiously looked for Hayami's figure. At this time, Hayami had already arrived at the parking lot. The wealthy adoptive parents who were sleeping suddenly received a call from Jinky. Jinky couldn't help crying out for her daughter when she thought about the scene in her dream. The wealthy adoptive father rushed over at this time. Jinky was afraid that something had happened to her daughter and hurriedly told him the situation. President Min immediately called, but found that Hayami's phone was in the hospital room. Jinky hurriedly begged President Min to help. Hayami drove while thinking about what she had done over the years. She had to live in fear every day to hide her identity, but the truth was finally revealed. Hayami suddenly had angina and had no choice but to stop the car where it was. No one could know what was going through her mind at this time. Jinky had nightmares every night, thinking about the decades of abuse she had inflicted on Sora. She feared that retribution was coming her way. Her husband hurriedly tried to comfort her, but Ginky still prayed to heaven that her daughter would be safe. Hayami, in an attempt to escape reality, went to the confessional alone and wanted to tell everything that was in her heart. Although one cannot choose one's own life, she really couldn't stand the life of poverty. Finally, she had a rare opportunity, so she desperately wanted to seize it. She wanted to escape the life of poverty in the slums, so she had no choice but to steal Sora's identity and be adopted by a chaebol. Perhaps for Hayami, she felt she had done nothing wrong, but she should not have used Sora as a sacrifice. Achieving the life one wants through one's own efforts is more peaceful than the life obtained by harming others. At this time, the nun prepared some food for Hayami. Hayami felt uneasy when she saw that someone was still concerned about her at this time. The nun asked her doubtfully why she didn't ask her relatives for help if she was in trouble. If she hides and holds it in, she will only feel more uncomfortable. Do you know why people who are alive have body temperature? Of course it is so that when someone is in trouble, they can feel that someone is by their side. Hayami suppressed her resentment. At that moment, Sora found her. Hayami looked at her in disbelief. Sora pretended to be fierce and said, "Is this where you ran away to? Why didn't you run far away? Your parents wanted to come and see you, but I stopped them." In the end, Sora was the only one who could open Hayami's heart. However, Hayami hated her in her heart. One day, "You suddenly came to my house. I know you are an orphan with no home. It seems to me that you should be crying every day, but you keep smiling. I clearly have more than you, but I'm not happy every day. When I'm not happy, you keep smiling. which makes me even more unhappy. But then you met the Chable family and were adopted by them. I feel that you are a favored child of heaven, but I live in a poor family. But I feel that all of that should have been mine. But you took it away from me. I dreamed of having the life that you have. But you got it without even trying. Hayami resented Sora's fate deeply in her heart. Sora didn't want to recall the unpleasant things from the past. The kind Mrs. Wu still wanted Hayami to return to her side. After all, she had developed feelings for her without knowing. She was reluctant to see Hayami leave alone. But Hayami still deeply blamed herself in her heart. Mrs. Wu told her that everyone makes mistakes, but the courage to admit one's mistakes. Hayami could not bear to see her kind foster mother sad, so she quickly scolded herself. It was obvious that she had deceived them all, but in the end, it was still oneself who was comforted. Hayami couldn't help but burst into tears. Mrs. Wu looked at Hayami, who had somewhat awakened, and said, "Because you are already punishing yourself. It means that you may have figured it out." Hayami couldn't stop sobbing when she heard her adoptive mother's words. She couldn't help but cry out, "Mom!" But she felt that she shouldn't have uttered that title. In this world, the relationship between parents and children is not something that can be chosen, even if it is an adoption. We cannot choose, so you and I have been destined to be mother and daughter since long ago. Hayami felt even more remorseful in her heart. She was annoyed that she could be so heartless to her kind adoptive mother. Mrs. Wu thought of how Hayami had stayed by her side when she was paralyzed after the car accident. Every day, no matter how late it was, she massaged herself in order to recover faster. Thinking of everything in the past, her adoptive mother hoped even more that Hayami could come to her senses. Minky also finds Hayami and tells her that he is going abroad to pursue his career and to seize the opportunity that he had missed before. He also persuades Hayami to let go of the burden in her heart. It is better to admit one's mistakes than to keep them to oneself. Hayami apologizes to Minky for her selfishness. She had never seen the great ambition in Minky's heart and only saw him as a failure. But now she realizes that her own vision was narrow and small-minded, and she could not see the long-term development. The two eventually make up and become friends again. Minky invites her to go abroad with him to relax. However, Hayami still hasn't let go of the burden in her heart so easily. She wants to wait until she's back on her feet before seeing him again. Sora has returned to work at the Mirai Group. Her childhood dream has finally come true. She is now a famous handbag designer. Looking at her former colleagues, she recalls how her hard work has finally paid off. Her heart is filled with joy. Sora doesn't forget about Si-hoon, her love at work. Even when she's not at work, she brings 2 buckets of instant noodles for lunch. Si-hoon looks at them with disgust and says that he hates women who are obsessed with their work. Sora pretended to be upset when she heard what he said and brought the instant noodles directly to her own table. Si-hoon hurriedly asked, "Do you have any fantasies or expectations for the proposal?" Sora told him her thoughts about the proposal scene in her heart. Si-hoon said, "Minky is going to meet your father this weekend. Do you want to go together?" Sora was stunned when she heard the news about her father. How wouldn't she want to go see her father, whom she hadn't seen for decades? But she hadn't had her father's company for so many years. Going so suddenly would only become awkward. Si-hoon watched as they both had feelings for each other, but were just unwilling to be the first to offer forgiveness. He wanted to persuade Sora to ease the tension between the two. Si-hoon thought that it was his fault that her father-in-law had been driven out of the company, which was why she was unwilling to see her father. He felt a lot of self-blame in his heart. On the other side, President Choi was busy planting vegetables in the field. When he looked up, he saw Minky, whom he had raised since childhood, had not forgotten about him and was smiling. President Choi was extremely demanding of Minky and was preparing to groom him to be his successor, but he betrayed him when he stole the company and left. At that time, he also said some very vicious things to him, and had planned never to see him again. He never expected to feel a little sad after only a short period of time without seeing him. Then President Choi apologized to Minky for what he had done over the years. Minky said, "I brought you a present you'll definitely like." Then he took out the letter Sora had written to his father. Minky then explained to him why Sora could not come. President Choi had felt guilty towards Sora for all these years, and he had never expected her to reconcile with him. After his ex-wife passed away, he had never been by her side, and he had even spoken harshly to her. Sora wrote in the letter that "I once hated you because you let Mum pass away alone, and I have never once called you Dad. This unfamiliar term makes it impossible for me to see you peacefully. Please give me some more time when I can let go of the burden in my heart, and when the name Dad no longer sounds strange to me, I will definitely come to you. Until then, let's go back to where we used to live and start a new life together." And that's the end of today's story. Thank you for your support and company.